Of all the new Hollywood auteurs, Hal Ashby holds the curious crown of being the most rigidly confined to that era. Tracking his career trajectory, beginning as an Oscar-winning editor in the 60s through the making of his 7 masterpieces in the 70s, and ending with his ultimate marginalization by the studios in the 80s, one can't help but wryly notice the decade-centricity of his story rivaling that of only Dirk Diggler. His tragic death at the age of 59, after a series of embarrassing failures, left his legacy somewhat tarnished for some time afterwards. However, he has reemerged many years later, thankfully, as one of the most influential filmmakers to ever do it, and general interest in his maverick, hippie-ish brand of cinema is at an all-time high. Because his style was so multifaceted, and he had such an ability to meld the sentimental with the dark, or the sharply satirical with the gracefully beautiful, one can catch glimpses of him in the work of almost every director making personal films today, whether they realize it or not. Today we will explore 3 films. First, The Thomas Crown Affair, on which Ashby served as editor and associate producer, the Vietnam drama Coming Home, one of the aforementioned 70s masterpieces, and finally, the director's ignominious final project, 8 Million Ways to Die.
Welcome to Kael Your Idols, a new Hollywood podcast with your hosts, Sam Ludwig and Elena Gibson. And today, we also have a special guest, Michael J. Dougherty. Blessed with spina bifida, Michael J. Dougherty is a film person, essayist, and disability advocate. He is the writer-director of the PSA Look Around, made to promote disability inclusion in storytelling, and the co-founder of the Real Abilities Film Festival, Los Angeles, now in its 6th year, which screens movies by and about those with disabilities. He fell in love with film at the age 3, when his mother took him to see E.T. while recovering from brain surgery. That last part explains everything. So welcome, Michael. We're so happy to have you join us on the podcast today.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. Thank you so much. It's like my favorite topic of my favorite topic. So
that's awesome. Can you elaborate on that a bit more? Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your relationship to film and maybe New Hollywood and Hal Ashby specifically?
I call myself a film person because I do make them, but it's really like my life entire. It's thinking about them, it's writing about them, it's advocating for them. I created a film festival. I've written reviews about them, and it's just my main love in life. And the 70s filmmakers in particular, because of that explosion of creativity, that the only thing that comes close is probably the 90s, was so impactful and caused such a seismic wave in the way that I looked at movies coming up in the 80s and the 90s, that it's a well that I've constantly gone back to over and over and over again. Spielberg actually was my idol since I was a little kid because of E.T. and that experience. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have somebody like a Hal Ashby, who was a complete rebel. And as I started to develop a voice as a filmmaker, that was the guy. It was like, I want to be as weird as possible and get away with it for as long as I can.
Do you remember what Ashby movies you saw first, or where it sort of clicked, what you locked into with him?
Well, see, it actually predates any of his movies, because I saw, of all things, Rosemary's Baby really early on, like in grammar school or junior high. And I had this, as a child, had this weird obsession with Ruth Gordon, because she's so weird, and she's so weird in that movie.
Yes.
And so I wanted to get as much information and about her and her filmography as I could. And that's when I stumbled onto Harold and Maude. And at that time, it was probably the late 80s, early 90s. It was still kind of like a taboo movie because of the sexual subject matter. And I grew up very, very Catholic. And so it was the type of thing that we didn't necessarily talk about. It was a taboo subject. And so that was immediately enticing to me, because this was the forbidden fruit. And it is shocking. It is a shocking movie. but it's shocking mainly in the end because it's so sweet and it's so lovely and it's so warm and human, and sidesteps any of the kind of grossness that you think that people would have gotten out of it. So that was the first one, and then I probably went to Coming Home next because of the disability theme. I know I saw 8 Million Ways to Die on HBO because that used to play all the time years and years ago. But basically, it was Harold and Maude, which I think is probably everybody's sort of like cherry buster.
Yeah,
for this guy,
definitely.
So
actually, for me, I just watched Harold and Maude for the first time a couple days ago. So
yeah,
I envy the first timers for that, because it's just, well, you don't have to tell me a lot, but what did you think going after it?
So I felt like I had a pretty good sense of what the movie was going to be like before I started watching it, because I had seen clips of it. I already knew kind of what to expect, but I found it very, like you mentioned, sweet and touching. And so I liked it. It's not my favorite Ashby. Coming Home actually turns out to be my favorite Ashby of the ones I've seen. But just Ashby in general, I had this huge blind spot about him as a director. I didn't even know the name Hal Ashby until we started the New Hollywood podcast. So like all of his movies, I hadn't seen any of them until we started.
I think you'd seen Shampoo.
You showed me Shampoo,
right, when
we were first starting to get immersed in the New Hollywood world.
Yeah.
So that's the only one I'd seen. Like I saw that maybe a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then all like his other movies I watched. I've now seen 5 out of the 7 big 70s movies. The only ones I haven't seen is The Last Detail and Bound for Glory, because Bound for Glory is really hard to find online anywhere. And then I've seen 8 Million Ways to Die. But yeah, all of those I watched within the past week. So I'm very new to Ashby, but I'm just so intrigued by him, and I'm so happy that I've like been able to get this like deep dive into him through this episode.
You've been mainlining it.
Yeah, it's like straight into my veins.
Well, I recently watched Harold and Maude for the first time and liked it. I mean, didn't watch it for the first time. This was my first time liking it. I've seen it several times, and it has not been a movie that I've liked, despite it having all of these elements that I am completely psyched about. I love Bud Cort. I also love Ruth Gordon, a big Rosemary's Baby fan. The concept of it, the weirdness, I'm all about weirdness. And the concept has never been a turnoff for me. I think there was a lot of the sentimentality ruffled my feathers in a certain way. Like the Cat Stevens of it all, if you want to sing out, sing out. I think it all got very reduced to that for me a little bit. And I was finally able to have an experience with it where, first of all, it's not the only Cat Stevens song in the movie. There are actually a bunch of great songs in that movie. But I think I needed to be at a place perhaps with thinking about what Ashby represents, maybe, or I don't know. Like it's hard to, it's gotten me thinking about returning to movies. And it actually made me want to, and this is going to connect to current cinema landscape a little bit, which we can talk about. But it made me want to revisit another movie that I don't like, which is Lady Bird. Because for a similar reason, which is like, it's this kind of uncanny valley thing, I think, or it was at least. I'm open to it changing for me. But this uncanny valley of like, this feels exactly like something that I should like. Like this is all comprised of things that I'm so there for. And that there's something about it that's like, no, that's not what I want, or out of it. I don't know.
Do you have an allergy to preciousness?
I don't think so, but I guess sort of, I remember you and your email to us were talking about like Wes Anderson is obviously a person who feels connected to Ashby and would describe themselves that way. And he certainly has the preciousness aspect of Ashby.
But it's like a distanced preciousness from Wes Anderson. Whereas I feel like Ashby, it is more on a much more personal, emotional level than what I get from Wes Anderson movies personally.
Agreed.
Yeah, I guess there's a thing where it's like, I love what Harold and Maude is saying, except for the times before when I saw it, it's like Maude sort of comes out and explicitly says the message of the movie in a way that I think was from, and same with the Cat Stevens song, it's so explicitly giving it to you that, I don't know, yeah, it's like, I don't feel like I I love sentimentality. Yeah, I guess I was just ready for it. I think people talk about this as like Harold and Maude being a movie that people's relationship kind of changes to sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So you were always an Ashby fan. Is there any of his stuff in the 70s that you are not as much a fan of?
No. In fact, I and this is not a new sentiment, but I would go so far as to say that only Stanley Kubrick has had a longer run of, in my mind, like the great movies. I mean, it's what was it, seven movies in 9 years? Every single one of them, at the very least, is worth talking about, let alone loving. I mean, there's just no other filmmaker I can think of, like I said, other than Kubrick, that has pulled that off. And he seemed to do it without effort, too.
Yeah, and it's crazy because his film career was relatively short compared to all these other directors who were considered so great. Like, I think his film career is like half the length of time as Francis Ford Coppola and Scorsese's film career was. So It's insane that he was able to make so many amazing movies in such a short amount of time.
And he kept getting away with it, which is, I know that ultimately was part of his downfall in the end, was that he stopped being able to get away with it. But that was what made that era so exciting, was that the lunatics were running the asylum, and they could make whatever they wanted off of studio dime. I mean, it's just shocking.
Yeah, you could argue he was a victim of the changing of the culture too, which we will get into.
But yeah, he's a perfect example of like what New Hollywood is, since he thrived specifically within that time of like freedom within the studio system.
And then ultimately how the whole thing imploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's emblematic of that, tragically.
Indeed. He's somebody who, you know, like I said at the beginning, he's taken as a sort of point of pride, I think, for a lot of people to be influenced by Ashby. He has developed at this point a certain kind of cool signifier for a lot of people. And, you know, it's weird. I think he's somebody that people like to love. Obviously, he has this, you know, delightful hippie grandpa uncle persona. He's famously a nice person. But, you know, yeah, his movies, he doesn't tend to go in for the sort of, you know, violence that much that in ways that kind of characterize a lot of the other New Hollywood auteurs. And I think there's a certain kind of like, he feels a bit like a reaction to the other trends of New Hollywood in a way, and a way that people can kind of still latch onto, or, you know, find maybe more multidimensional aspects to, versus somebody like a De Palma, who I think some people can write off as like, oh, I know his thing, or he kind of does the same thing all the time.
I wonder if that softness is partly due to the fact that even though he's a rebel filmmaker, he came up through studio system. He was an assistant editor and then an editor. I know we were going to talk about that, but I wonder if because he was sort of in the system, that he learned how to make things that would be both challenging but also palatable to an audience. I mean, none of his movies were hits, or they were discovered later. But you're right. I agree with you. He was the anti-De Palma. He was the anti-Scorsese or Coppola, where all of these like big dick filmmakers that wanted to show how violent and terrible the world was. And I don't think Ashby shied away from that, but I think there was a hope to his work that the others lacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And building off of that, I heard it said from people close to him that he wasn't so much inspired by other movies. He was inspired by the people around him. So maybe another aspect of that is like, he didn't go in saying, I'm going to make this super flashy movie. It's going to be so cool, so stylized. Like, he just really built the movie up from people that he was inspired by. And then also the fact that he was so collaborative with other people. Like, he wasn't, like you're saying, like, big dick director just trying to like come in. And I personally find it much easier to emotionally connect with his movies, with his more personal ones, not really the dark humor ones I don't connect with as much emotionally, but like Coming Home, for example, I connect with that a lot emotionally compared to like Scorsese or De Palma or Coppola, where those ones feel like they're kind of designed more towards, like, Sam and I just recorded a Taxi Driver episode and we had a discussion about this, but I feel like those directors are kind of their audience is more male-centric. I didn't find that Ashby had a lot of that maleness behind everything.
Which is interesting because he's not particularly much less focused on men than those filmmakers. Like, he's not like a Bogdanovich or a Woody Allen, who I would say they are a little bit more female-centric than anybody. I mean, is Ashby, I mean, Maude is an exception, but he makes movies about male outsider characters. Yeah, and Sally. That's true.
But to Elena's point, like, he's more Jon Voight than he is Bruce Dern.
Totally.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Excited to talk some Dern and some Voight in this episode.
Should we dive into like his early life, going into his career, and then we can start talking about the movies?
Let's do it.
By all accounts, was pretty unwilling to talk about his childhood. Although one quote said he described it as an interesting childhood, as those things go. He also lied about some things about his childhood. Like, he at one time lied about the year he was born. He was born in Ogden, Utah, in a Mormon community. And he said at one point that his parents weren't Mormon, but then other people who he grew up with said that they were Mormon. So there's just like a lot of like kind of mystery surrounding what his childhood was like. But yeah, it was this non-traditional early family life of a Mormon community, and his parents. People have described that he was a happy child up until the point where his parents got a divorce, and then his father committed suicide.
A theme that is very present in a lot of his work.
Yeah. So they clearly like affected him a lot, those two events. At first, when I was learning about Ashby, I'm like, okay, yeah, early life, whatever. But the more I get to know him as a filmmaker, the more I'm interested in kind of just thinking about how his childhood affects his work and his life before he passed away.
You can see two very prominent threads just in what you were describing, in the whole thing about being adjacent to but opposed to the Mormon community. That planted the seed of anti-authoritarian, I'm not going to follow the rules type of stuff. But then when his parents got divorced and his father died, there was that distrust of authority figures, specifically that you could not count on anybody because they were ultimately going to fail you. And I think those two things, whether he knew it or not, were sort of like, oh, those are the Irk texts. Where he came from and the fact that there was separation and death at an early age. I mean, I heard that he found out that it was a suicide because he read the write-up in the paper.
Yeah.
It's such a cold and awful thing for a child. He's like 12 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
Awful. So the fact that he could rebound from that and make what he made, I mean, is amazing, because he could have turned into De Palma. There was a setup there, but, I guess one of them went out the front door and the other one went out the back door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read in his biography that apparently he's actually the only one in his family who thinks that it is a suicide. And so I just imagine this, like, apparently in the obituary, the police said it was that the father was just cleaning his guns and one of them accidentally went off.
Wow.
But his father collected guns, so it's weird that he'd be like cleaning a loaded gun. So I just imagine this scenario where maybe Ashby read some newspaper suggesting that his father committed suicide and then realized that must be true, but the rest of his family like refusing to believe it. That must create such like a distance between you and your family if you're the only one who's willing to like really take in this event as is.
Yeah, but what you just said, that I mean, I was flashed like Coming Home. I mean, that's literally what that movie is about in ways, is that we are being lied to by these authority figures, but there is somebody who's going to deliver the truth to people the best he can. So, all right, I see we're starting to knit something here.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
Yeah, he certainly felt very stifled and bothered by living in Utah. He wandered away to Los Angeles at a pretty young age, right?
He got a woman pregnant when he was 17, or maybe the baby was born around the time he was 17, which is like way too young.
Yeah.
I was just shaking my finger at him.
There will be many more finger shakings regarding to his relationship with women.
Yeah. That it's like abandonment, like he had it done to him and then he ends up doing it to other people. And there's this weird tension through his life and through his work where he's at times both cuddly and warm and embracing. But you're right. There's a distance to him as well. And he died, so it never really got reconciled.
But that's the thing with him, though, is like, I mean, he's got incredible sentiment, but it's always, just imagine him doing, I know he did work on a Neil Simon thing, right? Like that was
the Slugger's Wife.
The Slugger's Wife, right? But it's just like, I'm just imagining just like him making a story about two like attractive young newlyweds or something like that. Just, it would be, he does love stories about people who are a strange match or people who are overlooked in certain ways by society or people who are not meant to be together. He's got this sentiment, but at the same time, it's like cynicism, but it's not quite. He believes in love and he believes in human connection, but he clearly is not interested in telling stories about people who just win and live happily ever after.
Yeah, like Wes Anderson, I would say that like his movies are very much like ice cream served with razor blades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't have it just be a straightforward anything.
Yeah, I heard that people close to him said that his inability to like open up really limited his relationships. So Jerome Hellman, who was a producer on Coming Home, said, "I knew no more about him when he died than when I first met him." And David Hamburger, who was a first assistant director on 2 of Ashby's films, said he made everyone feel like they were his favorite, but nobody could get past a certain point. And I think that's sad that like he reaches such a level of empathy with his characters in his movies. Like he's clearly interested in people, but it seems like he never really was able to connect with them in real life the way his characters are trying to connect through in his movies.
And I wonder if that's because it's such a director thing to want that life is chaos. And so to be a director is to bring some level of order. Mm. And so if he could control the situation, he can give as much love as possible. I mean, there is not a single actor who I think has ever said a bad word about really working with him. Mm-hmm. Once you step out of that framework and you have to actually deal with reality, it becomes problematic. But what's so sort of like contradictory of that is like you take a movie like Coming Home, that is so confrontational toward reality and the way things are and the way that they should be. So it's almost like he had the capacity. It was like he was just like missing a block.
Yeah, clearly a much better impression was made on his professional collaborators than probably many of his personal life loved ones. Jack Nicholson once said that when friends refer to him, it's like we're writing a recommendation for a college scholarship. And, so I just recently read Peter Biskin's Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, and it ends with the death of Ashby and his funeral, right? And, we watched the documentary Hal, and they have footage of his funeral. And, this is just, people are clearly treated like this is one of the all-time funerals, right? Like, everybody goes on and they've got their amazing speech. And I think they said they had one person per film. And, it's just everybody is toasting this man in a way that just does seem so warm. But then, you read about his personal life and it sounds, in some ways, kind of crazy. He had a marriage dissolve supposedly on the day when they were adopting a child together.
Yeah, and how many times was he married?
5.
5? Yeah, his first marriage, we mentioned, got started kind of young. He was like married and divorced by 17, a father by 19, and then married and divorced twice by 21. And then his daughter was born, his first daughter was born when he was 19 in September of 1947. So September of 1947, and then the spring of 1948, he leaves for California. That's like so soon after your first child being born to like just ditch.
But wasn't aware of anything like the Beats or the hippies. I think it's like he just needed to get away.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like talking about like what influenced him. It's like I couldn't find a list of movies that he said he really liked. I didn't find any thing where, he obviously didn't make a sight and sound poll or anything like that, but did you find it? Do you know of anything that he claimed this is one of my favorite movies? I saw Citizen Kane when I was growing up. I saw The Red Shoes.
No, because and that's the other interesting thing, that he's very much like a 70s director, but he wasn't a Scorsese or a Spielberg where they ate, drank, and breathed movies. All of Ashby's references seem to be just humanity. I think that's another thing that makes him so extraordinary, and that run so extraordinary, is that there are no reference points. They are exactly what they are at the time that they were made. And we're still feeling that reverberation 50 odd years later.
He is the reference point. I can't think of another person who more people working today avowedly claim to be influenced by. He is somebody that people proudly wear their Hal Ashby influence, or some people I think claim more of a Hal Ashby influence than is even really there.
Like who?
Well, I don't know. This is something I kind of wanted to talk about. So I feel like there's, there's this new Alexander Payne movie coming out. Have you seen the trailer for this? The Holdovers or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw it, and I immediately turned to Elena and I was like, Ashby? I mean, it's very, very explicitly him going for that. Judd Apatow, of course, is somebody who I think, named his daughter Maud and claims a lot of influence, but with him, I guess I struggle sometimes wondering where the influence is. If it is just I don't like guns in movies, or I like kind of nerdy characters sometimes, or I like comedy mixed with drama. I like Ashby,
Well, I think Apatow, towards the end of his movies, always kind of subverts where you think it's going, and the characters just end up having a really honest conversation. I feel like that's kind of an Ashby element. The improv too with Apatow, I guess you could say that the reliance on getting actors together and seeing where it goes and cutting,
I just wish that Judd Apatow had an editor that would talk back to him,
right,
and say, "Dude, you're only making a movie that's 90 minutes long."
I am of two minds about this. I love the extreme length of Judd Apatow movies, at least in theory. But yes, obviously, I agree that there are many scenes that go on quite a bit longer than they probably have to. So this is a good leeway to talk about him, early editing career, the Wyler and the George Stevens, and of course the Jewison of it all.
Yeah, I think he bounced around a little bit and did some odd jobs, but eventually ended up in California.
Man, I miss the days when we had directors and actors who had early life stories. It's they did some odd jobs.
Now we just have YouTubers.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
They did some odd blogs.
Yeah, so he showed up in LA and just went to the employment office and can I get a job in Hollywood? And they started him off as a multi-lift operator, which I didn't know what that was, but it seems like a old-timey copying machine from what I can tell. But then ended up in the editing because he'd been told that the best school for directing was the cutting room. And he has some thoughts now about whether or not that was the correct path for him to go. I think he told people that he doesn't recommend that they do what he did because I don't know if this is still true, but at the time, through the Editors Guild, the union, you have to be an apprentice for 8 years before you can become an actual editor. And wow. He was kind of annoyed at how long that was. And he felt like that rule prevented quite a lot of people from actually becoming editors. I don't want to sound like we're pro-union over here. So I just want to make that known. We're pro-union. But I could see that being a bit of an impediment.
Well, but that's also, it brings up another character trait, which is I know what's right.
Yeah.
The unions and the 8 years, forget them. I know what I'm doing. And because I'm being held down by this, I'm going to be a kind of a jerk along the way to the powers that be.
Probably one of the best cures for this feeling of impotence and being stuck in the editing room is smoking copious amounts of pot.
Yeah, which he did.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he did some other things too. And I'll talk about that. But
we will. But no, yeah, the fantasy of Ashby in the editing room, just smoking weed. He was an insomniac, stayed up something like 20 hours a day editing a lot of times. And he was a control freak. But I don't know if you ever, you obviously have some thoughts about this and how maybe the drugs, affected him later on and stuff. But he never seems to get, he's not an extremely self-indulgent editor, I wouldn't say. He's not somebody who it's always very tasteful what he does. Like you disagree, you're making a face right now.
The Thomas Crown Affair
Well,
is one of the most bug-fuck edited movies.
yes.
I mean, the level of visual imagination on display there, like he's so off the chain, and that's a studio movie. So it's like, I guess the relationship with Norman Jewison was such that he was protected, but like, it's wild, some of the stuff in that movie. And having seen it all these years after film school, I'm like, how did they have the discipline, especially if you're smoking weed all the time, to actually put that all together?
Yeah, apparently it was like 7 months of nonstop editing for Thomas Crown Affair, which I'm obviously not an editor, but that seems like a long time, nonstop.
Ridiculously long time.
Yeah, so some of the choices that you're alluding to, though, probably were not directly supervised by him, though, right? Like he didn't make the split screen stuff. You said, right?
Well, okay, so yeah, there's the Thomas Crown Affair is very famous for the multi-screen where you have multiple screens up at once showing different things. Those sequences are designed and edited by Pablo Ferro, who was originally hired just to do the logo type for the movie, and he's worked on other movies doing like the title sequences, but Pablo Ferro was recommended for the project by Ashby. The polo sequence was
that's so good,
really long, and they needed to shorten the movie, but Ashby was like, don't cut it out, cut it up. And so they decided to go with a split screen or multi-screen approach. And Ashby had worked with Pablo Ferro on the movie The Russians Are Coming. And he knew that Pablo Ferro had actually already done this approach in an advertisement, I believe. So he said, bring this guy on. And yeah, so originally that multi-screen approach was just to like shorten the polo match. It went from being 6 minutes long to 40 seconds long. And they liked it so much that they had Pablo Ferro design and edit the multi-screen sequences throughout the film.
I stand somewhat corrected then. I thought that he did all of it, but
me too. Yeah.
But like Pablo Ferro himself says that Ashby really helped him refine his technique throughout the movie and was definitely like part of that creative process. And it was Ashby's idea in a way anyway. So definitely Ashby has like a major hand in that multi-screen approach too.
For sure. I love that polo sequence. I love all of the split screen stuff in Thomas Crown Affair. I really like it. It's some of the best stuff in the movie. I guess one of the more energetic pieces of editing that he does do, the more self-conscious pieces, would be like the chess match.
Oh boy.
Yes.
It's like a chess game in real time.
Yeah, it's based on a famous chess match, dude, from the 1890s, I believe.
There was a lot of sexy lip licking.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of people going like I mean, you got McQueen and Dunaway, two of the blondest, most hand-actoriest hand actors ever, being given license to do everything. I mean, it's almost like Terrence Malick or something, where he's like, yes, just run your fingers up and down your arm. Yes, again, do it again, and touch your eyeball, tweedle your thumbs. Yes, I love it, right? And it's sexy.
And that's connected, I think, because Ashby would have been watching that in the editing room and putting that together. And so you can see the young director to be saying, well, if I concentrate on the delicate human moments, it actually makes it a richer and weirder experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a movie that is, in my opinion, a little bit of a boring movie that the camera and the direction are kind of trying to zazz up a bit, I would say.
Yeah, if it were edited normally, I don't think anybody, other than the charisma of the two leads and the fact that Steve McQueen could just stand there and be interesting, I don't think anybody would be talking about it.
A movie screaming for a remake that it did ultimately get in 1990.
And the remake's really good.
That's what I was going to say. I haven't seen it. I think I saw it on a plane when I was a kid, and I remember it being like pretty good and yeah, the kind of thing where you're like, I see why this was remade.
And they had good leads again and a good director, and so it's worth seeing.
Yeah. So our podcast name is Kael Your Idols, inspired by the film critic Pauline Kael. So we always like to bring up Kael's thoughts on these movies. She had a lot to say about it.
How much did she hate it?
She's so interesting because like she always is saying multiple different kinds of things about it. In some ways, she'll just like shit on something, but then at the same time, she'll praise small little aspects about it. And that's something I love about her, is that she's, even with the things that she doesn't like or thinks is bad, she's able to like pick out little bits that she enjoys. She has this famous essay called Trash Art in the Movies, which she wrote in 1969. I highly recommend, if any listeners out there are interested in reading it. It's actually kind of long. It's not my most favorite of hers in terms of writing. Like, I feel like she rambles a little bit, and she makes so many references to movies that like nobody has seen. So, you know, you have to like get past that. But there's some like really interesting concepts in there about her views on movies. Have you read it?
Yeah, and is that the one where she quotes? She says the thing about how, and I'm paraphrasing, but like how are we to appreciate great art if we can't appreciate great trash? Exactly.
And her example of something that's great trash is the Thomas Crown Affair. So she actually thinks it's like really fun. She says, a light romantic entertainment like the Thomas Crown Affair, trash undisguised, is the kind of chic, crappy movie which one would have thought nobody could be fooled into thinking was art. Seeing it is like lying in the sun, flicking through fashion magazines, and, as we used to say, feeling rich and beautiful beyond your wildest dreams. So she thought it was like trash, but like good trash. And Pauline Kael likes trash. Like, she enjoys trash movies. But one of the things she points out in the essay is she really doesn't like when people pretend that trash is art. So she like makes fun of all these film students who are analyzing Thomas Crown Affair as if it's like this high art movie. So maybe she'd make fun of us right now for analyzing it in a podcast. But she thought it was like fun trash, which to
I think it's like not trashy enough.
It's not fun enough. It's kind of like you said, I think it's boring. Yeah. Despite being fast paced. But that's her opinion on it. But something she said is like one of the things that gives this trash a lift is that some of those involved, knowing, of course, that they're working on a silly, shallow script and a movie that wasn't about anything of consequence, used the chance to have a good time with it. So she's referring to what she calls the dazzling editing by Ashby. She has a funny quote. She says, the dazzling editing is by Hal Ashby. The less dazzling music is by Michel Legrand.
The windmills
of your mind. And that's the Dusty Springfield version. That was the one that I knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
It won Best Song.
Ugh.
Very, very late 60s.
Very late 60s, I guess, speaking to the supposed depth we're supposed to infer in the mind of Thomas Crown, Steve McQueen.
There's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing going on. There's nothing there. I love Steve McQueen, but it's like he was much better when he didn't say anything.
Yeah, a gentleman thief. Not exactly the role that I would first imagine blonde former circus performer Steve McQueen in.
Jewison didn't think he'd be good for the role either initially. He thought like it was too refined a character for him to play. He said like Thomas Crown doesn't look at his feet. Yeah.
I'm imagining him being like, give me your best super self-satisfied laugh. And McQueen doing what he does in the movie. And Jewison's like, okay, whatever. Never mind. We'll only have a couple of self-satisfied laughs.
Yeah, can I say the laughter is some of the worst things about that movie.
It's amazingly bad. Yeah.
We both were like, oh my God.
It's like, don't speak, don't say anything, just stand there and look cool. And
well, that's what McQueen famously was always trying to get rid of his own lines in movies because he just wanted to, he said, have the other guy say it. I'll just be standing back here fiddling with my gun, peeling an apple, ruffling through some papers, giving a wry look. But the idea of McQueen being a sort of mustache twirling, I can't believe I pulled off the perfect crime guy. It's not quite as effective as I would say Dunaway is in her role.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's running circles. Around him, and it makes. I got to a certain point, and like I said, I like this movie. I think it's a fun thing, but it gets to a certain point where it's like, come on, babe, you're so much smarter than this guy, so much more sophisticated. Move on.
He's committed the supposedly perfect crime, and they catch him in 0.45 seconds. Like she immediately guesses who he is.
Okay, but I really hate. Well, okay, I'm down for her being like, this is the type of guy who would do this. Yeah. But what really bothers me is when she's like, oh, I think that the robbers didn't know each other and they haven't gotten paid yet and they're getting paid in installments. It's like, there's no way she would have figured that out. Like, I really didn't like the plot mechanics at all.
I guess that's supposed to be her insurance investigator's mind.
But it was like
so
too
well.
Unrealistic. I don't know. I don't mean to be like, that's not realistic, but yeah, that's one thing about her character that kind of annoyed me.
Well, she gets 20%. She gets 20% of. She gets $200,000 for solving this crime. I mean, she's very good.
Are there, like, is this a real job?
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, this is like, like Johnny Dollar. You're familiar with Johnny Dollar?
I'm not.
No, but I know that insurance investigation, that is a real thing. I mean, that's when there's a fire and a business burns down. They would bring in Faye Dunaway to figure out if it was arson and whether the person should actually be granted money.
No, but does she get 20% of that? Like, does she get 20% of the insurance money?
No, and they wouldn't let this guy who they thought and had all the evidence to basically prove that he's doing it. They wouldn't let him walk in and out of their headquarters like it's nothing.
Right.
Wouldn't let him go on a date together. Like, no, that you kind of have to just swallow hard.
Yeah. But so what I was getting at, though, is like, this is drafting. Not only was this a real thing, but this was a real kind of popular character. There was a long running radio show called Johnny Dollar. It ran for like 10 years. And it was like the man with the golden expense account. And so he plays an insurance investigator who goes, and it's basically a detective story. But yeah, he's got the Faye Dunaway job. So this was a thing that people were clearly interested in the 50s and 60s. Like, wow, what a fun jet-setting lifestyle these people must have.
But I think also she's the regular Joe or Jane that's gonna bring down the rich entitled guy. So it's especially satisfying, or it should be, and until he screws her over. But
yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's what's so interesting. So, right, so it's like, this is the late 60s, right? We're into New Hollywood. You're casting Faye Dunaway off of Bonnie and Clyde, right? Which, by the way, I have to say, she looks much older in a good way. Like she's like, this is a year after Bonnie and Clyde, and I feel like she looked like a young girl in that. And this, she looks like an adult, serious woman, right? Like she has this strangely malleable screen presence that I think is pretty cool. But so this is it's got all sorts of laser light show bits in this movie. It's got this newfangled editing style. Steve McQueen is very late 60s cool fashion icon. But he's a rich guy who's like an arbitrage douchebag. And she's an insurance investigator who is going to get 20%. And like, they are banding together against these cops and the state, right? So it's like, these are the rich counterculture people who are like fucking over America.
Yeah, it's kind of like the last gasp of the whole thing. After this, we'll be completely against it.
Yeah. Right.
Or let's go for one last hurrah.
Yeah, I hate his decorating style so much. I think that I actually don't love it. Can we do a little Jewison sidebar here for a second?
Sure.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about the Jewison Ashby friendship?
You can talk about it.
Okay, well, so basically Norman Jewison, one of the more important journeyman directors of the 20th century. Would you agree?
Agreed.
Doesn't quite step into the realm of being an auteur.
No, he's very much a studio guy.
A studio guy. I mean, I have seen so many of his movies. I mean, I've seen, obviously Thomas Crown Affair, Fiddler on the Roof, Jesus Christ Superstar, Rollerball, Moonstruck. He's made some incredibly important movies, probably a little bit lacking in influence at this point. There's not probably a lot of people who would cite Jewison as being one of their touchstones. I'm a big musical theater fan. I actually think Fiddler on the Roof is quite, and certainly Jesus Christ Superstar in its way, but even more so, Fiddler on the Roof is a really unusual take on making a movie of that show. He makes a lot of unusual choices. He kind of goes grittier, where you could go, candy-coated in other ways. And so he is sort of this figure who's trying to push things forward in some ways. But yeah, the idea of somebody like saying, like, I came to film school because I want to be the next Norman Jewison is sort of, you would kind of love to meet this person, but
I really would. I really would. And I want to support this person.
Yeah, right.
I want them to succeed.
Yeah, he is one of the more admirable voiceless journeymen. There's a quote from his that somebody said, Jewison continues to prove himself among the most facile and appropriative of the two-dimensional directors. This was in a thing about Thomas Crown Affair. So it's like, basically, this guy knows who to steal from, right?
Appropriate, I think, is a really good word. Like, he's not gonna color outside the lines so much. I mean, there was enough flair to things, but you're right. He stayed in line.
But he knew he had a good thing with his protege, Hal Ashby.
And can I say the two of them is like the most adorable thing in the entire world.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like the first bromance. I mean, it's just so cute.
I really love in the Hal documentary, they read some of his letters. And one of his letters to Jewison, he signs off saying like 18 loads of super double dynamite love. And I think that's so adorable. Jewison, here's a quote from Jewison about Ashby. Hal Ashby was, without a doubt, the most committed director I ever worked with. He would, of course, move on to become, that probably is supposed to say editor. He would, of course, move on to become one of the finest directors in contemporary American film. Regarding Ashby's relationship with Jewison, Ashby said, "It was the most productive relationship imaginable. Norman always gave me good film. Then, to top it off, he trusted me in my instincts. He never stood behind me in the cutting room. He let me select and cut his films as I felt it. It was an editor's dream, and in the end, it brought me 2 Academy nominations and 1 Oscar." And then also, Ashby was an associate producer on the film, and he said that, like, Norman just really involved him with everything in Thomas Crown Affair, from scouting locations to being used as a sounding board for ideas on scripts, casting, and new projects. And yeah, he said, "What more could I ask? What's really wild is the fact that I didn't even have to ask."
Yeah.
It's really cool that Jewison just was like, "I want to nurture your career."
And I have to say, just as a sidebar to all this, because of like the strike and everything, I have, because of having met some of the people that are doing it and been to the line a few times, I am struck by the level of camaraderie that it can exist where people can support one another and be helpful. I don't know how that will bear out, a year from now, but it's something that's been invigorating to me, that you wish that the industry was just littered with Norman Jewisons who wanted to be helpful, and he wasn't a jerk. He wasn't trying to do anything like, he was doing it because he genuinely cared. And I look forward to that every time out that I try to make some kind of film thing. So
yeah,
no, that has to be a big part of what made Ashby such an encouraging and collaborative person.
definitely.
That has to be kind of the origin story of that he got the elevator sent down to him, and he's got to send it further.
Yeah, because Ashby apparently not only was really supportive of his actors, but he also encouraged his crew a lot through promotions. So Don Zimmerman was assistant editor, and he promoted him to lead editor on Coming Home. He allowed editor Robert Jones to work as a writer on Coming Home, being there. Jeff Wexler, who's the son of Haskell Wexler, the cinematographer for Thomas Crown Affair, and then Coming Home, right? He was also cinematographer.
Bound for Glory.
And
Bound for Glory.
Bound for Glory, yeah. And just a famous cinematographer.
He's come up before on our podcast on Days of Heaven.
Days of Heaven, yeah. But anyway, so Jeff Wexler is the son of Haskell Wexler. He was production assistant, and Ashby allowed him to try out being head of sound crew on several of his projects. So yeah, anyways, he really also just promoted the people who were with him, just like Jewison did for Ashby. Like, Jewison was like, "What do you want to do with your life?" And Ashby said, "I want to be a director." So when Jewison received the offer to direct The Landlord, he passed it on to Ashby, which is so cool.
You wouldn't hear about that these days. like Scorsese saying, "Here, have Killers of the Flower Moon."
But do you feel any hope for the strike maybe creating a new atmosphere in the film industry? Do you think this experience will change?
If it turns in our direction, and the writers get exactly what they're asking for and what, frankly, they deserve,
right? It
has to change. It will make things a bit more democratic, but it's scary though, because they're Netflix and a couple others are really going in on this whole AI thing, and I think there's a scenario I can see where they'll put all their chips on AI, they'll produce things, it'll last for 2 years, and then it'll fall apart, because making art relies on human experience. I say that unequivocally. in the case of AI, it doesn't have that. And so it'll make approximations of things and people will be entertained for a while. But I think people are going to get hungry again for that campfire story.
You think AI will just kind of become like a supercharged version of like the studio executive or whatever who doesn't, who's just...
Yeah, see, why can't we just replace all of those guys?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that actually seems like a perfect job for AI.
True. Well, no, that'd still be bad. It would still be like trained on what's made money in the past and say like, yeah, let's keep making money.
Yeah, I guess we don't want any people to be replaced by AI. I guess I don't need to compromise on that front.
That's good that you're hopeful that people will want to have real stories again. Like, part of me is a little worried. We're both a big fan of the book Infinite Jest, and there's this whole idea of like the ultimate entertainment movie that if it's like just too perfectly entertaining, you're not going to want to do anything with your life except just watch it. And I just worry.
This is to me the Grateful Dead. Sorry, needed to throw in my Grateful Dead reference.
Okay.
That's my perfect entertainment.
Really? All right.
Oh yeah.
We
have a Grateful Dead reference every episode.
Grateful Dead.
And there's no Ashby Grateful Dead anywhere that I could find. So
he's basically a dead teddy bear.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, he is somebody who, yeah, that's a sliding doors. If he had ever actually gotten into the dead. But yeah, no, like you can specify more the idea of the Infinite Jest entertainment because it is a darkly terrifying vision of where we're going.
Well, you can summarize that idea more because you've read the book way more than me. But I'm just concerned that AI might get so good at knowing what's entertaining in a very soulless and meaningless way that people might be easily addicted to that level of entertainment. And even if they recognize that it's not fulfilling in any way, they'll maybe still can't help but be addicted to it.
Yeah, can we do a dark thought experiment really quick right here?
Sure.
Sorry. So like,
I love this podcast.
So what's like a book you love?
I just finished The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
Okay.
It's
all right.
Incredible.
So what if there was an AI that like you could put, your thing in that said, make me a Hal Ashby movie of the life and times of Rick Rubin or like the thoughts of Rick Rubin. But it's like a real Hal Ashby movie. Like we're talking like the level of 70s Hal Ashby. It could work. It could live alongside one of his 70s masterpieces and be indistinguishable, but still not repeating them, like actually be as different from all of those other things as they are from each other. Would you resist, like if it was genuinely good, would you be able to resist that?
Yes.
Wow, that's beautiful. I worry that I wouldn't be able to resist a perfect new Sondheim show.
I just think there's
I'm scared of myself. Like if you actually got to the point where you could make a new Sondheim show based on Infinite Jest or something.
No, but like what I'm talking
scared.
about is a soulless kind of entertainment that's kind of more just like a physical reaction.
I would resist
and
that.
I really don't think AI is capable of doing the Hal Ashby emotional honesty thing.
That's the thing. It'll know the notes, but not the music. And there'll just be something missing. Like you can tell. I mean, the perfect example for me is Marvel.
Yeah.
I grew up on comic books. They meant a lot to me. That was the first time I ever saw myself reflected in any way in popular culture as a real little kid. And I was excited when the movies came out. And the first few I was really down for it. But now I don't care because it's just been a fire hose. And you get to a certain point where you can't choke any of it down anymore. And so that's what I'm saying. I think AI could hold on for a couple of years because I agree. There's a certain section of the population that does not give a damn and will just happily sit there like it's Brave New World taking their soma. And that'll be the end of it for them. But I also think that we are as human beings, as a planet, we are given to this idea of telling stories and telling them to one another. And you need a human element in order to make it work ultimately, I think. No,
I mean, as an artist, I desperately hope that you're right. I feel like the thing that you're describing with AI holding on for a few years, that's not that indistinguishable, like, right, you say, from like the current state of Marvel movies and a lot of the actuals. Like, I do feel like that is basically what we're living in now is like an AI created.
But it's falling apart.
Yes.
Like, Disney is at a crisis.
Right.
I mean, it's starting to feel, and I'm crossing my fingers on this, and this is something I really want to get angry about at the end of this thing, is that it's starting to feel a bit like 1967, 68 with Hello, Dolly, and they're making this terrible movie that no one wants to go see, and they spend all this money, and then it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's going to happen because Disney keeps finding ways to morph into a more and more terrible beast, and it just keeps absorbing more and more. So I don't know. But with them tanking like they've been for this, past year or so, there's a part of me, and I don't want to see anybody fail. I actually don't. But I also want art to flourish. I want people to do good things. It shouldn't all be money.
I'm down for people who've been succeeding a lot for a while to fail a little bit more. But if you've been succeeding for 15 years, you can fail some. But yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of people. I think one of the reasons that we did this that we thought this was the right time for this podcast is, yeah, like you say, we're kind of potentially at a moment where we need a new Hollywood thing. And some people had made the Barbenheimer comparison to Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate as being potentially some new culture-defining movies in a commercial realm. Do you have any thoughts about that? Or
yes, I was so happy that after 3 years of being indoors and being sad and lonely, that everybody was out and dressing up and being silly and being in a room together. And these two completely divergent experiences, they were allowed to coexist, and everyone was excited about it, and they would have arguments about them. It stopped me cold, though, when I was like, okay, so Barbie's going to cross like 1 billion in the next week. That is actually giving Warner Brothers fuel to dig their heels in for a few months longer than they would because of the strike. And so again, I don't object to money. It's not, I'm not Hal Ashby, but I think when that becomes the story, I think something has gone askew.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that, about how it'll help the studios sustain longer during the strike.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, this whole new Hollywood thing is kind of the story of money, right? It's the story of studios seeing money in the counterculture, or seeing money in a new generation, or seeing money in new techniques, or a new way of looking at directors being in charge and stuff.
And the problem was that all of the money making came at the beginning of the decade rather than the end of it. Because if The Godfather had come out in 79 rather than 72, this would still be going on.
Yeah.
But because it was an immediate success, and then 5-6 years of just artistic brilliance but flops, that's partly what made it all fall apart. So again, it's like, I'm happy when things that are good make money, because it means more good things hopefully will be made out of it. Don't quite get why Greta Gerwig is doing Chronicles of Narnia when she could do whatever she wants.
That's her next project?
Yeah.
For Netflix of all people.
So Hal Ashby, during the beginning points of his career, struggled to find movies that connected financially. And as well as somewhat critically, Harold and Maude was not a critical success. The Landlord and Last Detail were. But then he sort of had his big artistic and commercial breakthrough with Shampoo in 1975, which I think Shampoo, quick note, Shampoo, that might be my Ashby movie that I connected the most, which is unfortunately the one that I think is often considered the least his, in a way, because, Beatty, of course, is largely considered the auteur of that project. It's Ashby's second collaboration with Robert Towne. But that is what sort of puts Ashby into the position which he enjoyed later in the 70s and throughout a lot of his career, even when it was sort of going down, of being commercially successful and a commercial draw and an above-the-name director, and a person that people sought out for their personal projects. And I think this is, do you want to go to Coming Home, or do we have anything else to talk about?
Did you have any other Thomas Crown Affair thoughts?
a lot of fun. It's fluffy, and I'm glad it existed because it gave this very singular man a way to get into the system.
Yeah. Would you do the job if you were the guy at the beginning who gets brought to this random hotel room and this guy flashes lights on you and gives you the layout of this job? Do you think, could you possibly resist such a professional setup?
Because I didn't understand it. I was like, I don't understand what you guys are doing. And I would be late to pick up the thing and with the thing. I couldn't.
There's no cell phones?
I turned into Woody Allen robbing the bank.
Yeah, get the money.
Take the money and run. Like I wouldn't be able to I'm not cool, you guys.
I feel like I would be blinded by the professionalism of his setup. I would just be like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. Yes, I will go anywhere with you, mister.
I'm skeptical that a light that bright would prevent you from seeing even a little bit of his face. Like, I feel like I could have seen his face, but figured out who he was. I just really hated the plot of it. Like, I didn't like the ending.
Yeah, the ending's very weird. The plotting is very strange.
I don't know what they were trying to say with the ending. I thought it was fun, sort of, but also boring. But I appreciate what it did for people's careers, like you said. I just wanted to point out there was this debate about if the movie was just all style rather than content. And Jewison said, in my own blasé opinion, Wexler has photographed the Thomas Crown Affair as one of the most stylistically brilliant films ever done. Of course, we'll be accused of placing style ahead of content, but I say, the hell with that. People who say that understand neither style nor content. In the movies, style is content. I maybe disagree with him because, I typically am the type of person who prefers style and the structure of a film over the plot. But in this movie, I feel like I needed some plot. Maybe because there wasn't enough emotion. Like, if there was emotion and style and a vibe, then I don't really need a plot. But this one is so distanced, I needed more.
Ashby is a bit of a refutation of that in some ways. I mean, he's pretty stylistic, but he's also very content first, I would say.
He's certainly people.
Yeah.
I don't think he gave a damn about plot ever.
I think the plot in Coming Home is actually very interesting. The way that all of the reveals happen and stuff.
Lots to talk about there.
Yeah, for sure. But so anything else? Well, I guess we should talk about he won his Oscar in the Heat of the Night. Said peace and love when he won. That was his speech.
For In the Heat of the Night, yeah.
For In the Heat of the Night. So, coming home?
Yeah, let's
come on home now from Vietnam, the Vietnam War, famous aspect of New Hollywood. This is a year that is kind of the year that the Oscars discovered the Vietnam War. This is the Deer Hunter versus Coming Home year. Coppola is he still doing post-production at this point on Apocalypse Now? He's done shooting it, but this is kind of the beginning of Hollywood attempting to directly discuss Vietnam and the effects of Vietnam.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good place to start. We could talk about, of course, the inimitable Jane Fonda, the originator of this idea.
Yeah. Also, I think, of the three movies we're covering, this is the most Ashby of the movies. So this is also a good place to just talk about what makes Ashby Ashby. What's the Ashby style?
Yeah, it's also approximately a billion times better than the other movies, too, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe Thomas Crown's fine, but anyways.
Yeah, so where to start?
Well, this is kind of an unusual Ashby in a way because it ain't that funny.
No.
Yeah.
It's not funny at all.
No.
Actually, I wrote down in my notes, there are some funny moments in here, but reflecting back, I can't remember what they are, except for the guy from Breaking Bad.
Oh, Mike Ehrmantraut, right, yeah. As the soldier friend.
Iconic line, don't even look at that turtle.
Don't even look at that turtle. If you look at that turtle, I will come and find you in the middle of the night. There's actually a great moment, speaking of joking and Coming Home, there's one of my favorite moments. I mean, the acting in Coming Home is so good. They both won the Oscar for Best Actor and Actress, Voight and Fonda specifically. But there's this moment that, this is terrible podcast material, but where they're hanging out at her house and he makes some joke to her and she's like, oh, that's funny. Like, she laughs at it. And then Voight gives a little yeah, that's funny. Okay, it wasn't that funny kind of face. That you just never see in a movie, somebody reacting to somebody's reaction to a joke. It's that kind of extra level of behavioral acting that Ashby is just like, yeah, give it to me. And other directors would be like, we can cut that out, you know?
Yeah, like the opening scene of the movie where you have a bunch of non-professional vets in chairs talking about stuff while the one actor is laying there in the background. You never get away with doing something like that now, but that's Ashby to me.
Yeah.
Is this way of bringing documentary type of filmmaking tactics into the fiction of it, and it makes it more authentic. It makes it warmer and softer in many ways, even though it's a harsh topic. And that's the interesting thing. Like the script is so angry, but the direction is so not. Like it's so compassionate, and it's so empathetic, even up to including Bruce Dern in the ocean at the end.
Oh yeah.
That the director clearly loves all of these people in ways that I don't think that the script was actually dreaming of.
Yeah, the script, which was being constantly reworked, and they improv'd around a lot with it. But yeah, the opening scene, this is one of the best openings ever. It just opens with that pool cue break sound, such a great snap into it, and then just some guys talking, and it's so real.
It was so engaging to watch them talk, and something I really loved about it is like it wasn't trying to glorify anybody. It was really presenting each person just very real and honest. So like something I really liked is they included the one veteran talking about how one of the reasons he went to war was out of curiosity, and everybody else is looking at him like, that's a terrible reason to go to war. And he's like, but also the moral reason too. But the fact just including that just felt so human and realistic. And I really liked that was something Ashby was trying to show was honesty. Like that's something that's really big for him, is honesty in depictions of people.
And that ultimately the system is to blame for everything. It's not the individual, because even Bruce Dern in the end is a victim of all of the lying that goes on in the military.
Yeah.
And he's not going to, and he's an officer, and as opposed to Luke, who is an enlisted man, but they try to, the system tries to get him to fuck over Luke. And he's like, absolutely not. That's, I don't care what this guy's done to me. He is my brother, and you people are not my friends,
Yeah.
That scene at the pool, that's one of the cry moments for me.
Absolutely, yeah.
Comes at a weird moment, obviously. It's not like a big emotional beat, but the fact that he would not do that to him and just wanted to confront him person to person, it was so powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, okay, I'm usually not a fan of like taking time to summarize the plot of a movie that we're discussing, because like hopefully people will watch it beforehand or look it up after or whatever, but I feel like maybe for coming home it's worth doing a quick summary of the plot, so because we're going to be talking specifics about the plot. So do either of you want to do a quick summary?
Okay, so basically it's the story of Jane Fonda is this officer's wife. It's set in 1968. One of multiple Hal Ashby movies that is a sort of period piece of not so long ago. Also, Shampoo set in 1968 as well. And, Jane Fonda is the wife of Bruce Dern, who's a sort of a pretty gung-ho guy, very excited to get into the war. And she starts a relationship with this other girlfriend of her husband's friend.
A friendship.
Yeah, a friendship. A gal palship, if you will. And this friend has a brother who is a wounded veteran at this veterans hospital, right? And Jane Fonda just sort of becomes interested in veterans, presumably because she's married to a soldier. And there she meets Luke, played by Jon Voight,
who she actually knew already from high school.
Yes. And this is what's interesting, is basically like, this is the main reason that she likes this guy is because he was like a hot football player from her high school, which I kind of like. It's kind of adds this weird sexiness.
I don't think that's true.
No, I think there's like a sort of like recapturing of your innocence. There's a thing about them knowing each other before the war. I think that's
interesting.
I think that's part of it, and that's kind of what I like about it. But basically, he is.
I think she finds him sexier in the wheelchair.
Oh well, we'll definitely get into this for sure. But she meets Luke, who is paralyzed, and he is at first recovering on a stretcher, and he's using like canes, and he's sort of he seems like he's sort of like dealing with some anger, but they develop a nice friendship and stuff. And then he gets a wheelchair. And this is kind of the thing, we are not wheelchair users, we can't really speak to this, but the way that this movie treats the wheelchair is kind of purely positive, especially compared to the way that he seems so much more upset to be in this stretcher. Once he gets the wheelchair, he's like alive. And he feels like, he's like popping wheelies, and he's eager to talk to people about it. And it's the story of wounded veterans, and it becomes basically a romance, a love triangle between Jane Fonda and Luke and Bruce Dern, her husband. And basically, like, it's loosely based on Fonda's relationship with Roy Kovic, the person who wrote Born on the 4th of July, which later became a film starring Tom Cruise.
It's my favorite book.
Really?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because we're going to have to talk about this, the comparison to that in the movie and stuff. But I do feel like the interesting thing about this is Luke is a wheelchair user, and it's something that is depicted in the movie, but that is not really his struggle in the movie. He's much more concerned with like being a Vietnam vet and what the fuck is America doing in Vietnam? And he becomes an activist. And yeah, he is just much more troubled by just the sort of socio-political questions of Vietnam than he is ever depicted as being, he's depicted as being enlivened basically by being a wheelchair user. So it comes to a sort of plotty and I would say fascinating conclusion. I read somebody that said something like the third act kind of falls apart, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's got an amazing third act. Like it's like the plot becomes so good and the ending is beautiful and amazing. Yeah. But yeah, basically it's this story of Jane Fonda, having really sexy sex with Jon Voight, and her husband comes home, and they kind of got to deal with it. And they deal with it in a very human and real way that is beautiful and very romantic and sexy.
This is a cornerstone movie for me, and both as a film person and as a person with spina bifida. Now, I used to walk with crutches, but I fucked my foot up and I've been in a wheelchair for a while, and that's another whole kettle of fish. But you're right, because every time I see depictions of disability, my spidey sense goes up, and I'm like, how are they going to screw this up? And how am I going to be insulted or hurt by this or mad that they got it wrong or whatever? And the remarkable thing, I believe wholeheartedly that it's because of the alchemy of Hal Ashby and Jane Fonda and Jon Voight. All of that got short-circuited for me. And you're right, it becomes this love story where the paralysis is almost beside the point, but it also doesn't shy away from it.
Right.
I mean, one of the more powerful moments for me was when he comes out of the bathroom dressed only in the towel, and because he's got to take a catheter out and all this other stuff, like that's the implication of what he's doing in there. But the fact that it's a moment of blunt reality, like, I am in this situation, I have to go take care of this, followed immediately by this incredibly sexy, romantic, like, whoa, dude moment. And the way that gets pushed together and in the editing, it was stunning to me. The only thing I will say and is that the disability nowadays in terms of inclusion, because it's the last bit that has to take hold, because we're dealing with race, we're dealing with sexuality, we're dealing with gender, we're dealing with age, but we're not really dealing with disability as far as the culture is concerned and representation. People have railed against this movie because Jon Voight's not really in a wheelchair, and I understand that, but this movie is so truthful in its direction and in its writing and in those performances that at 1977, 78, probably wouldn't have gotten made unless Jon Voight was in that chair. Mm. So if I were to make it now, I would want someone who was actually in a chair. But the representation, because it doesn't deal with, the mawkish, or it doesn't deal with pity. Even the anger has more to do, again, with the system rather than I'm mad about my body being changed drastically. And like I said, they have to deal with it. And she asks questions, which I think, that's a really beautiful thing. And I wish people would do more of that. Just like, what should I do? Because if we can't talk to each other about this type of thing, we're never going to get anywhere. And I refuse to be miserable and lonely and staying in the house all the time. I want to be outside meeting people. And it's absolutely groundbreaking what they do in this movie. I wish I would have been able to meet Hal Ashby. I did get to meet Jon Voight.
Whoa.
And a couple times, actually. And while his politics...
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know anything about him.
This would be an interesting movie to discuss with Jon Voight now, I'm sure.
I have.
Yes, I'm excited.
While his politics now are too far to the right for me to be comfortable, he is a lovely, lovely person. Mm-hmm. And he'll look you in the eye and he'll talk about this stuff. And it was amazing because he could tell how shaken I was to be me because of this one movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm glad you got on its wavelength. And he said at one point, you have a little bit of that Hal Ashby spirit in you. And I almost fell over.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah. And Jane Fonda is actually one of my heroes, probably to the chagrin of a lot of my conservative relatives. But she and Lily Tomlin protested at Netflix, which is 10 minutes from my house, like 2 weeks ago. And I couldn't be there. So upset about that because it's like she's one of these people that I think if I met I'd actually faint because of the contributions that she's made and how important it was to her to get this made. And she signed her acceptance speech was for Clute, so it's something that matters to her, and you feel that and it's modest and it's humble. Nobody's claiming that they know one thing more or better than another person. It's about people willing to talk to one another and work things out. And it's amazing that ironically, it's about a conflict that never got resolved ultimately. And that's sort of the tragedy of the whole thing. But even somebody like the Bruce Dern character who gets dumped on and then becomes this figure of rage and like he's part of the system and he's a coward in many ways. Hal Ashby can't resist looking at him with empathy and compassion and seeing him as a human being. Yeah, God, dude, I was so glad I met you guys because I just wanted to talk about it for so long. I love it so much. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, we normally don't. We like to save our thoughts about movies until we record the podcast. But after we finished this movie, we both had this look in our eye of like, can I tell you how much I love this movie? Like we were both just like, I need to just like quickly say that this was an amazing experience watching this movie. And it was, thank you so much. This movie, and the thing is like, it's just like, this movie, it could be like so maudlin. Like he ends with him giving a speech to high school kids, and like, it's like your task is sum up America's foreign policy and how it's affected you personally in a long rambling speech to high school kids. And I want you to cry and go, give it to me. And it comes off beautifully and it's real. And and part of this has to do with Hal Ashby's willingness to let actors go, but also finding it in the editing room. But just this man, Hal Ashby has got to have like the best cinematic crying in movies ever. Like, I'm thinking at the end of Shampoo or this. I mean, it's just like things where he'll just have people like just sit there and cry with each other and just like really share these moments. And it's cathartic and it's not overwrought at all.
Yeah, it feels right on the verge of melodramatic all the time. And he's such a weird mix of being heavy-handed in some ways where it's like telling you what the message is, a lot of the time, but also extremely nuanced. And it's just such a weird combination of doing both. And even when you're like, okay, I can see how this is heavy-handed, it doesn't feel heavy-handed. And he explores multiple sides of it.
Yeah, so, I almost feel like he's picking scripts that in lesser hands would be heavy-handed, but if they followed, the straight direction of them, but because he's got other ideas about things and wants to see how ideas bounce off of one another, he ends up sort of stripping away a lot of that heavy-handedness.
Yeah, in terms of him being flexible with the script, apparently, well, first of all, the studio didn't want Voight to play this character because they thought he had no sex appeal, which is crazy because that's like, he just brings so much sexiness to that character.
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, when she invites him over for dinner and he comes over and she's all like flustered and like walking around and he just like grabs her hips to still her, not in an aggressive way, but just in like a calming but like steadfast way. Oh, it was so hot. Like, I fucking love that part.
And yeah, I mean, he had to campaign for this role. Like, yeah, nobody thought that he could do it, but he's like, trust me, I could do this. Like, I got it. They wanted him to play the Dern role originally.
Yeah. Apparently Ashby offered the Luke role to Nicholson.
Pacino was another one that he was thinking of.
Okay. Well, and then offered the Captain, what's his name? Captain Bob Hyde. He offered that to Voight, and then Voight was like, I really think I should play Luke.
Yeah, Voight would have been weird as in the Dern role, I think. But maybe I don't know.
Well, Dern's weird in the Dern role, so it's like hard to see.
Dern is almost
where that role should be.
Can I just say Dern's actually kind of a little hot in this movie? Like with the mustache, like Dern even has a weird sex appeal. I don't know. Like I know that he's supposed to be like lack of appeal personified, but like I don't know. Like
I don't see it.
Well, he's got this like confidence to him, and there's like there's danger there.
Yeah.
Like,
I was wondering if they cast that guy, Bruce Dern, specifically to make Voight look hotter by comparison.
Bruce Dern's an interesting figure. We can talk. You want to do a little Dern talk, or and then we'll get it from him?
Magnificent. I love him.
Yeah, this is his. Is it? Would you say this would be his best role in the 70s?
What else is he in? I don't know.
Well, I guess
King of Marvin Gardens. He's amazing.
Still haven't seen that. Yeah.
He's been in a bunch of westerns. He's really good. I mean, then go all the way up to Nebraska.
Nebraska is the right.
Great thing that he did.
I mean, I remember I saw him in The Burbs as a kid. He was a big.
That was probably one of the first things I saw him in too.
Yeah.
Pauline Kael says regarding him that it's a fatally wrong piece of casting. She said he looked so bug-eyed and crazily distracted before he even goes to Vietnam that like when he returns, you can't tell the difference.
Well, he's an interesting figure too, because it's like it's difficult to see how he's affected by the war. I know that the main thing that people struggle with in this movie is like it's bad to have the Vietnam War, right? Like it's like, I mean, I guess he's got some PTSD, but they don't really hit that very hard with him either. It's more just like he's come back to a world that doesn't, like, his wife doesn't love him. Their marriage is a sham.
No, he like wakes up with the gun in his hand. I don't know. I think they show the PTSD in a very like not hitting your head with it type way, but I feel like it was definitely there with him, and it's just like very repressed.
But he has that monologue about like the guys taking their ear souvenirs, and his reaction to it is like he wants to talk about it. He's not that traumatized by it. I don't know. I guess it feels like I expected them to come back and have this movie always takes the unexpected choice, and like I expected it to come back and him to be this like truly troubled live wire guy, but it's like he kind of comes back and it's like he just wants to hang out with his bros, and he's still just sort of like not a caring lover and stuff. I don't know. Like, is that a weird read?
It's almost like that life is the problem for him.
Yeah.
It wasn't the war.
Right. Yeah.
He's better off there.
You want to talk about like Jane Fonda's, just sort of like her stardom and cachet and sort of what she used it for?
Yeah.
So she's a Nepo baby.
Yeah. The
One
ultimate.
of the most prominent Nepo babies.
Yeah.
But developed herself as an actor to get out of her father's shadow, and was brilliant basically from the jump, and became politically active, got nicknamed Hanoi Jane because she posed in very little clothing on top of an anti-aircraft gun. Got her in a lot of trouble, like death threat trouble.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And there are still veterans. I mean, like I said, I say that she's an artistic hero of mine, and I mean that, but I can't talk about that openly because I have too many conservatives in my family, and I love them, but that still have not forgiven her.
Yeah.
Even though she has owned up to having made some bad decisions about how she acted during the war, and spent the past 50 years showing up for veterans, which is incredibly moving to me. She's beyond forgiveness for me at this point.
The interesting thing about her is she starts off in these sort of lighter roles. You know, she kind of becomes a bit of a sex symbol with Barbarella. Kael referred to her as one of our most reliable nudie cuties. And then transitions with They Shoot Horses, Don't They? An episode I'm very looking forward to doing someday. Into being, you know, this great actor. She wins an Oscar for Clute. And she talks about herself being not quite blacklisted, but graylisted. And then later on, she said, actually, you know, I wasn't even really graylisted. Like, my career was still okay. Because I'm trying to think of, like, other examples of people who, yes, she became an extremely controversial figure, but she really leaned into, okay, this is what I do. I am an issues-based superstar, right? And by the late 70s, you know, she started her own production company. And she produced films that were kind of like, speaking to what you were saying about, like, this is such a movie star movie in a lot of ways, you know, like the kind of thing that you need to have the power of somebody there. One of the things that's so missing from the film landscape right now is just like a movie about a thing, right? Like the last thing that I can think of is like, anybody see the movie Captain Fantastic?
No.
I did.
Do you see it? I don't know. For some reason, I just watched the movie and I was like, this is like one of the last movies that I've seen recently that is like, a mid-budget studio movie with a movie star. That's just a guy had an idea of like, what if this? Let's explore that. I want to make a movie about, you know, anti-Semitism, or I want to make a movie about what is it like to be anorexic, or I want to make a movie about what is it like to go to college, or, you know, we don't have these things that are like, here's the idea, the Vietnam War, wounded veterans, go, let's see what we can get, right? And, you know, she did this with this, and of course, our beloved The China Syndrome was another example of this. 9 to 5, I think, is you know, another example of, basically, she had this ability to merge commercial entertainment and issues. And it all fed into her star persona in a way that is incredibly admirable. Like, it's the career everybody wanted. There's that great monologue on Pam and Tommy, where they ask Pamela Anderson, like, whose career do you want? And she goes out of this monologue, she's like, I would want to be Jane Fonda. She started off as this sex symbol, and, you know, she just basically became this respected actress who was also able to speak her mind. I mean, such a well-deserved icon. And then, you know, became the creator of the largest selling videotape of her time with her exercise video that my mom definitely had when I was a kid.
My mom had it too, and that was,
of course.
And I was shocked when I found out she was in movies.
Yeah,
because I was like, no, that's the aerobics lady.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not in Coming Home.
No, yeah, she takes a 15-year career break from 1990 to 2005, and nowadays she's as present as she's ever been. I mean, she's been in, you know, Grace and Frankie for a while, and she just does stuff now. You know,
I'm glad she came back.
I think she's great in this. And I love her chemistry with Voight. And I love that her collaboration with Ashby made this happen. There's this interesting thing about, you know, Ashby having many collaborations with people that I think one of the reasons he's been kind of overlooked is that a lot of people don't necessarily view his movies as his movies. Like you mentioned Shampoo with Warren Beatty. Also, some people view Coming Home as more of a Fonda movie than his own. And there's a couple other examples of this as well, like Harold and Maude. I think some people think that's more the person who wrote the script, whose name is escaping me at the moment. So some people consider this movie more hers than Ashby's.
The ending, though, is a mastery of Ashby editing.
Yeah, I don't agree with it being more of a Fonda movie than an Ashby movie.
I mean, I think you can make the argument, But I think with all of these movies, as varied as they are, there's an ethos towards celebrating life and people in all of our flaws that runs through every single one of them. I know it's a very universal thing, but it just kept coming out over and over and over again that the system is terrible, people are not.
Yeah, okay. I think this is a good time to talk about like what makes Ashby movies. So this concept of like criticizing the system. Are there other elements? So you guys think that he's very stylized, like visually? Because I
don't know about stylized, but he has a style.
Like visually though?
Yeah.
What would you say that is?
I think he's interested in documentary, certainly. That crops up a lot. The camera work seems to be invisible, but I think it moves. I mean, the Steadicam was first used on Bound for Glory, so there was technique there, but you could also, there was this feeling with the acting that you're watching it almost like you're seeing it for the first time all the time.
Yeah.
Like those actors just made that up right on the spot. And I think that was a hallmark of his style, that there was something kind of shaggy. I mean, we'll get on to the snow cone scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The scene's missing something. Snow cones?
and editing. Like it goes on for like 13 minutes.
Yes.
Oh God, I can't wait to shit on that scene for as long as that scene goes on.
But he had this, that you could feel the freedom that he was giving everyone who worked around him to do their best, which again, it's not exactly a style, but it came off like that.
You know what you're not going to see a lot of in Ashby movies? Super bold colors. He tends to go for pretty muted earth tones. He tends to have a bit of a darker style. He actually, I think Gordon Willis, the first like number one DP job that he did was on The Landlord. And I feel like there's a certain kind of, like this new movie, The Holdovers or Wes Anderson, there's a certain kind of tweed jacket, dark, browns and suits and stuff that can be kind of fetishized in the people who ape his style now. But he likes a grainy grain on the camera, and the colors tend to be fairly muted, I would say.
Maybe the reason I have a hard time like seeing his visual style, like I definitely see things that make his movies Ashby movies. Like I see the style in terms of just what he's bringing into the movies, but in terms of visually, maybe the reason I'm having a hard time seeing visually the style is because maybe I just don't like his visual style.
It's a bit gross and gritty.
Yeah, I don't like Harold and Maude. Yeah. I hate the look of Harold and Maude.
That was something that was keeping me out of it for a while too, I think.
And I just realized there weren't really any moments in his movies where I was like, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful shot, or I love the composition of what I'm seeing on the screen right now. I loved the content. I loved what he was doing and his direction.
Oh, the opening shot of Harold and Maude with the candle and stuff, though, that's so good. Like, that's amazing.
But it's just so gross looking. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe I just have this huge block because I just don't like that gross style. That it's just like,
maybe again it goes back to the documentary stuff, is that he's doing some kind of verisimilitude where it's like a proximity of reality. Life just happens to be drab, but he's going to find all of these like interesting people within that reality. Because he's the fact that we would not have Wes Anderson if we didn't have Hal Ashby, and the fact that all of his movies are so bright.
Yeah.
But yet they still feel like, oh yeah, no, you've got that same sort of like, you're looking at humanity in a very cockeyed way as well. You're just doing it through a more formal lens or framework.
I wanted to ask you guys during this little tangent, I kind of hate this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Like, do you think he counts as an auteur?
Of course.
I don't like that question because I don't think being a great director requires being an auteur. I think he's a great director, but yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna drop a bomb.
Okay.
Here. I think the auteur theory is complete and utter fucking nonsense. It's cool to think about, and I can see where it comes from, but there are hundreds of people that work on these things. So to claim that it's just one thing or one person is not only crazy to me, but I think it's kind of insulting because of all of these people that have to work very, very, very hard as from the time I was a little kid, I would make my parents stay through the credits of movies, which everyone would just get up and leave. But I would just, no, we have to stay, because it was important to me that those under the line people got some level of acknowledgement just by sitting there. I think he bucks the auteur theory completely, because he's completely original. There's nobody like him. There's no movies that really look or sound or feel like the ones that he made, but you wouldn't necessarily know that it was the same guy doing it. On the other hand, like the film nerd in me, I can put things together. Like, I like defending Michael Bay. Under the auspices of the auteur theory, because it absolutely does fit that. But Spielberg is like my hero, and he's the other guy who's like, that it's his stuff, but he makes such different stories movie after movie.
Well, but we did a Jewison comparison before a little bit. Like, I think there's quite a bit of different. Like, yes, obviously I agree, and Ashby himself is obviously such a collaborator, right? So I'm sure that he would be balking at the idea that, like, he is the one who made this movie. But he just is so singular, and I don't know. I mean, he has a similar aesthetic to Jewison. They both kind of like their dark burgundy looks, except when I look at the burgundy wood paneling of Thomas Crown Affair, I'm kind of like, bleh.
But you love wood paneling.
I know. That's the thing. I know. But yeah, so like it's there is a kind, like, we did a Sidney Lumet episode, right? And he's somebody,
another hero.
Yeah. Well, he's somebody who is anti-auteur. He definitely, like, says, I don't believe in that concept. Right?
He said it out loud.
He did. But I think there is a difference that could be pointed at between an Ashby and a Lumet. And it's not even just being a studio person versus being an outsider in a way. It's there's something.
I think it's a question of interest. Like, what are the stories that we want to tell? But it's also, I mean, this is, I think, true of directing, is that directing is not a job in and of itself. Directing is being able to get the right people to do their jobs. And so Ashby was able to get people time after time that were at the top of their game, and everybody was expressing what they could in the department that they could do it in perfect synchronicity with everybody else. And I think it's the same thing with like a Lumet, but just to different degrees, that he had different expectations for his crews and his actors. And that's why those movies came out that way. I mean, I'm sure that if Lumet had Ashby's crowd around him, his movies would look a whole hell of a lot different. But you just take the circumstances that you have and be free enough to deal with it.
I mean, and to your point in the beginning of the auteur discussion about it not really being a thing, I fully agree that, like, the definition of auteur being the sole author, that obviously is just not the way movies work. There's just, like you said, so many people who work on them and so many people who put hard work into it. And it is insulting if that's like the main definition. Maybe there should be a different word for it that moves away from like the technical definition of what that word auteur means. But I do see some directors who have, like, it doesn't even have to be a director, like Sorkin. Like, I feel like he's got that, and he's not even the director, he's like the writer, but like any person involved whose, sensibilities is kind of like always coming through in whatever they're working on. That's like my own personal way of viewing like the auteur question. But as I was asking the question, like, I kind of hate the question because it is just, especially because the industry excludes so many different types of people, that if you focus on the auteur all the time, you're just like excluding so many groups. Like, if you read books about, there's this book that came out recently called Women and New Hollywood. And unfortunately, it has to be Women and New Hollywood rather than Women in New Hollywood, because there are very few female figures other than the actresses in it.
Hey, this was the podcast we chose to do, okay? Sue us.
But that book and plenty of other things talking about feminism in the movie industry are always discussing how we should be staying away from the word auteur because of how it's just not including all the hard work that everybody has been doing.
Yeah, my pet theory with this is also, like, I really feel like it has something to do with distinguishing the role of the writer versus the director in movies versus theater. Like, I think that there's a thing where the playwright has more of a generally agreed upon authorship in plays, and the director in theater obviously existed before the director in movies, and they sort of had to figure out a way of defining the role. And it's kind of a way of like, who do I ask about this? I don't know. In a way, is sort of my way of looking at it. That it's a kind of like, obviously, yes, it's also people self-aggrandizing and trying to distinguish something like a person who's just trying to make a film for a popular audience and for a studio executive's notes versus trying to express themselves, which I think is an idea also that came around later and kind of people had to be given permission to do a little bit, right?
But that's what I find so fascinating about someone like Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Is that he is a studio guy.
Yeah.
Through and through. There's not even a question. And yet he has this cinematic personality movie after movie. And there are some of his movies that I genuinely love, and the others that I know people hate, and there's good reasons for that. But yeah, it's kind of thing that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was enough of a tangent. Let's get back to coming
home. Yes. Do you have thoughts? Or?
I have thoughts, but I know Michael has thoughts.
Sex scene.
Sex scene?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk it.
So there's two things to talk about, and we'll see if we can take this apart. I've heard cries of sexism that, this is the one man that was able to give her an orgasm and bring her out of her frigidity rather than herself.
Interesting.
Oh.
And I also, and I'm more in favor of this, is that one, it's absolutely groundbreaking to see what's going on screen there.
Yeah.
And what the implication of all of it. But the fact that, and I love this touch, and maybe I only realized it when I was watching it for us. She has an orgasm looking directly down the barrel of the lens.
Mm.
She's looking directly into the camera. And I was so shaken by that. To me, what that was saying was people deserve to be seen. They deserve this type of affection and physical love as much as anybody else. And I, Jane Fonda, am going to validate that. And to my mind, that's one of the number one reasons why I'm dying to meet her. And I want to talk to her. I just want to be like, you kind of gave me a permission to have a sex life in a certain way. I mean, I don't want to be too creepy about it, but it's true. It gave me hope that there were people out there that would be patient and curious and understanding, and I would be able to grow as an adult. She validated that to me in such a profound way.
That was her intention. It's very pointedly stated. Like she, talked to Roy Kovic, who said, being in this wheelchair really helped my sex life. It opened me up. It made me more interested in using other parts of my body. The intimacy that you're talking about, the looking down the camera. I mean, there was actually a lot of contention, supposedly, between Fonda and Ashby, actually, about aspects of the sex scene. And she wanted it to be what it came out as.
What did he want?
Apparently sorry. So I'm really not trying to get too deep into the Peter Biskind of it all, because I just finished Easy Rider's Raging Bulls.
Can I tell you, I hate that book.
I know. No, we're going to, okay.
Like every page of it.
I know. So I just finished it, right? And I'm like, Elena, you have to fucking read this book, because we're going to do an episode where we do a book report on it, as well as I want to do episodes on all of the big, Pictures of the Revolution and all of the big books, because I have so many thoughts about it. And I read this Vanity Fair piece that he wrote about coming home and The Deer Hunter. And yeah, it's as if Peter Biskind just walks up to somebody and they say the most foul thing ever that they could ever possibly say to him. And he's like, yeah, it's like, you have to be making up half of these quotes, man. There's no way that these people are actually saying this stuff to you. And it's all just so negative. And I mean, he basically seems to think that everybody who is ever involved in New Hollywood is just a total piece of shit, which, to be fair, many of them were.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it ended on salaciousness rather than look at what we got out of that. We don't have to. I hate that book so much.
It's a crazy artifact of a different time of when he wrote it, which is also an interesting point of comparison to now, I think.
But so what did he say Ashby wanted from that scene?
Well, apparently Ashby was more, they were interested in showing things like they were doing research as to the sex lives of different, people who had different sort of versions of paralysis and stuff. And there was a lot of question about, sorry, I don't want to get too explicit here, but like erections and stuff like that. And if they wanted it to be a penetrative sex scene versus a cunnilingus scene. And Fonda was like very adamant that she wanted it to be about cunnilingus and female pleasure and that, and not about like.
I was trying to figure out like, what is the earliest depiction of showing a woman receiving oral sex? It feels like a pretty early depiction of that. Like it's much more common now.
It might be it, and it's so few and far between. It seems.
Yeah.
Do we get a lot of it these days?
I feel like nowadays we
don't get sex scenes at all now.
Well, okay, but anytime there's like a female director, I love female directors, but like sometimes there's certain female directors that are like, I'm going to focus on female pleasure, so I'm just going to focus on like receiving oral sex, and that's like the big thing that they like make sure they get in the movie, and like that's cool because like represent female sexuality, but I just feel like it's more common now to like fixate on that as kind of a touchstone of kind of maybe a lazy way of showing female sexuality. Personally.
What would you do differently?
Oh, in this movie, or you mean just like in any movie?
In general, if you had to.
What do you feel is missing?
No, I think you should show that.
You want to see all of the different.
I think that should be involved in people's sex lives as much as possible.
Right.
So I think that show it, but also have other ways of exploring female sexuality other than just that. Like. And I'm not talking about Coming Home. I'm talking about current movies that are trying to make a point of commenting on female sexuality. But if all they show is just a woman receiving oral, I don't think that's enough to count. So I'd want to see that and more is my thing.
The frankness of the sex scene is what's so hot about it.
Yeah.
I have to say.
And it was just really sexy. And yeah, like showing, I love what you said earlier about like, he says, I need to go to the bathroom to do some stuff, and then comes back out and has a really sexy moment. And that's just like way more realistic, like of course, like disability representation is amazing there. Also just the human experience of awkwardness and things that are not necessarily sexy. You can turn a situation like that into a sexy situation, so it just felt so human.
Like simultaneous, it is human. I agree with that, but it's also that is like a movie star moment. He comes at it. That's a real like cinematic movie Brad Pitt moment.
Totally.
Yes, he looks hot with that towel over him, and as he's moving to the bed, you're like, well, I hope it slips off a little bit.
He's so cool. Like Luke is just such a character that is treated as he's like this sexy Jesus figure. And it's just like, you shouldn't let your main character be that cool normally, like, and that unassailably right about everything. He goes and chains himself up to a gate, and you're just like, and he talks to the press and talks to high schoolers, and you're hanging on his every word because he just exudes specialness and somebody that you want to listen to. And fuck, I guess.
The thing about him chaining himself to the gate is when he's being interviewed by the press, he doesn't sound movie star-ish when he's talking about it. He's just like, I just thought this was a thing I should do, So I don't know, that was just so much more compelling.
Yeah.
And I think that's the very Hal Ashby thing to do. Present this matter-of-factly.
You're clearly a big fan of Born on the 4th of July. But like, I haven't seen that movie in a while, but that movie is much more about him dealing with his new body, right? And dealing with the struggles of that. I would say than Coming Home is. Like he's sort of like struggling with being in the chair a lot more in Born on the 4th of July.
Yeah, the anger is much more palpable and direct. I really love the movie. If I take exception with it, it's that, and this is not Coming Home's problem at all.
Right. It's
that Oliver Stone does not want to go to those icky places or potentially disquieting for the audience. It's more that he wants to treat it as a symbol of the spine of the country has been shattered because of the Vietnam War. And I tend to despise disability as a symbol. I hate it. But because the rest of that movie is so strong and Tom Cruise is so brilliant in it, and it's my favorite book, I can give it a pass. But that's the thing about Coming Home, is that they don't treat that as a symbol or anything. It's just a thing unto itself. This is what people are dealing with, and there's all this other stuff.
Like he says in the end, I'm a lot smarter than I was when I left. He has come out the other side and understands life better than he thought he ever would, probably.
Let's go back to the sex. You mentioned the criticism from a feminist standpoint. I actually hadn't heard that criticism before, and I don't know, that bothers me. Like, women should be allowed to enjoy getting an orgasm, like, with a partner.
No, but it was the idea that, like, a man had to give it to her. And the more alarming implication that I've read is that there are some really stupid critics that have sort of alluded to the fact that because he's in a wheelchair, he is less than. And so, of course, she's going to get the orgasm from the less than guy, which I think is complete horseshit.
Yeah.
That's such a weird
He does not seem less than in any way.
Yeah.
He seems like clearly the better choice versus Bruce Dern.
But believe me when I tell you, people are not progressive. We're still playing catch up on this topic.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up at this point what Pauline Kael had to say about coming home.
Kael, not a fan of Ashby in general.
Yeah. I'm getting that sense.
He was not her guy.
It was like this experience where I was like, okay, let's see what Kael has to say. And I read it and I burst out laughing. Like, Kael, I often have an experience where I'll read her reviews and I'll gasp or laugh and I'll be like, okay, that was a take. She just focuses on the sex scene a lot. And she said, Coming Home started out to be about how the Vietnam War changed Americans and turned into a movie about a woman married to a hawk who has her first orgasm when she goes to bed with a paraplegic.
See, the implication's right there.
Yeah, you're right. And it's just so weird because that's like a great part of the movie, but that's obviously not the main part of the movie, like the sex scene and the orgasm. Like, she has a beautiful romance with him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're very cute.
They make cool friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
The friendships depicted are so good in this movie in general. But they listen to Richie Havens together. She's embarrassed about her record collection, then plays some pretty sick Richie Havens. I don't get it.
It's so sweet that he, when her husband's coming home, he asks, like, will you always be my friend?
Yeah.
And that part was so touching to me.
It makes you cry.
Yeah. Oh, I cried multiple times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking at these other Kael quotes.
Oh yeah, Kael. She like just calls it like a porny romanticism. But
why would she not like that though? That sounds like something. I mean, is the romanticism the problem there?
Maybe she's just not into that much romance. I don't know. I was just like,
it's a very heartfelt movie. She doesn't love.
I'm a huge fan of romances, and that's something I feel like it's just so hard to get from movies. Like, a good romance, it's like surprisingly hard to achieve, and that's one of the things I loved about this movie, among many other things, obviously. But like, it's a really good romance.
Yeah, no, that's the populist aspect of it. That's how they sneak in so many of the other issues that it wants to talk about. Is like, you got some cuties and you want them to kiss. Like, it's good. Like,
but it's deep and it's complicated and it's weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wish Hollywood would be able to strike the balance between doing the expected thing where we're supposed to swoon in the end, but it's not an easy road getting to that ultimate swoon. That's my highest aspiration, is that I want to make movies that like give people a really good experiences. I just want to be a pain in the ass until the end.
Yeah.
Giving it to them. So,
but they don't even walk off into the sunset together in the end. The end is incredibly dark in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it ends on this strangely hopeful note too. Like, it's Bruce Dern walking into the sea is sort of a hopeful image for him in a way. Like, it's a moment of freedom. I mean, he's obviously like lost everything and stuff, but it's intercut with Voight giving this beautiful speech and Jane Fonda and her friend who's so good.
Vi?
Yeah, Vi, but what's the name of the actress?
Penelope
Milford. Yeah, she's great. She's like, I've never seen her in anything.
She got an Oscar nom.
Yeah.
Same with
and that scene where she takes her shirt off, so heartbreaking.
It's so dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like Voight's giving a speech, Dern walks in the ocean, and Fonda and Milford are going to the store. And presumably they're going to find out soon that Bruce Dern has killed himself. But it's like you don't know. It's not like Fonda runs off to Voight and they embrace in the end. And she's like, I'm sorry, Bruce Dern, we can't, there's a lot left open-ended, but it still feels, it doesn't feel bleak in any way,
Feels real.
Yeah.
Yeah. The suicide of Captain Bob Hyde walking into the ocean, like first taking his clothes off and then walking to the ocean is very much the awakening. I don't know if you guys, I read that book in high school and like it had a really big effect on me. I don't remember that much about it, but I just remember it had a really big effect.
It's also the same year as Interiors too.
Oh, really?
A lot of people walking into the ocean in 1978.
I think it's one of the most poetic ways to show that.
Definitely is.
Which is, problem to suicide is a poetic thing. But the ending of this movie with what Captain Bob Hyde does reminds me a lot of the ending of Teorema by Pasolini. It was made in 1968. And it's one of my favorite endings to a movie ever. Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Can you describe this for the podcast listeners, what you just did?
I just stood up to show that I am wearing a Pasolini t-shirt because I wanted to show you who you were dealing with.
I love that. Okay, that's great. So have you, Teorema, that ending is like my favorite ending to a movie. I showed it to Sam before this podcast and Sam was like, okay, cool.
It was great. It was good.
But I was like, I literally teared up. And Sam was like, are you crying right now?
He described just from watching a clip of the ending.
Wow.
I don't know. For some reason, like the way he screams, it just, yeah. Anyways.
You introduced Pasolini to Sam?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I was not
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Yeah, we bonded over film, but I was more into foreign film and Sam knew all like the 90s indie stuff, which I didn't. I was always like, ugh, American film. No, I'm just going to be cool and do foreign film, which is stupid because there's plenty of great American film too. I took a whole film class on Pasolini. It was a really cool class.
I wrote my minor thesis in grad school on the act of consumption in the Gospel according to St. Matthew and Salo.
Oh, wow. Okay. Those are maybe some of the two big ones of his that I actually have not seen.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen the Gospel according to St. Matthew. Did I not watch it with you?
No, remember you went on that huge movie kick where you were trying to watch every movie ever made?
Yeah. I did watch a lot of those movies without you.
But I want to watch those movies and then read your...
I really want to watch. I want to watch them with you.
Send us your thesis.
Salo, I won't even face the screen. I'll just face the two of you.
Oh, that sounds delightful.
I mean, okay, I've seen Por Chile, where the tagline line of that movie is, I killed my father, I eat human flesh, and I quiver with joy. That's another Pasolini film. So I've seen... Consumption. I've seen that vibe of his.
I will say as a movie lover, like the St. Matthew is the most moving religious film I've ever seen. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
Salo is the most disturbing, most upsetting movie I have ever seen. And part of my conclusion about the whole thing is that you're watching a director just give up. Like Hal Ashby, even to the end, never gave up on people. Pasolini very much did.
Let's do at some point like a Meanwhile in Europe episode.
Yeah,
and we can cover those movies.
Definitely. Yeah. We'll have you back for sure.
Music. Can we talk about the music?
Oh God, I can't believe we haven't talked about Hal. Yeah,
must have been the most expensive soundtrack of all time.
Yeah,
there's like 5 Rolling Stone songs in it,
and just as many Beatles songs.
He was friends with Mick Jagger. He said that one of the reasons there's so many Stone songs in there is because he was friends and he was just listening to those songs a lot of the time, and he would just try them out in the editing room. He said every single time he tried a Stone song with the movie, it always worked. So I wonder, maybe he got a deal.
I would think so. But I mean, the use of Out of Time, it's so brilliant. And Tarantino used it in Once Upon a Time. Yeah. And that's a really good version. But like, this is my version. You don't take that song out of this. You can see where Tarantino, it's also Scorsese, but you could see where Tarantino was paying attention to the way that music gets used, because it's sometimes it echoes what's going on screen, or it's a counterpoint to what's going on, like with the Hey Jude and they're going off to war. And yeah, no, the use of music is amazing.
Ashby said that if he had the budget for it, he would have just done wall-to-wall music, like nonstop. Like he wanted the entire movie to be music. I think he wanted
pretty wall-to-wall.
Like a disc jockey to like open it and kind of get the sense that they're just listening to, that there's just this radio playing the whole time. Which, okay, I have some criticism.
The music is an Ashby thing that I think is open to some critical discussion.
I feel like when I was watching it, there were these songs that felt very epic. And maybe it's just because I'm used to seeing those same songs play during really hard-hitting moments of other movies. But it sometimes felt like the epicness of the song didn't match the scene that it was paired with. So sometimes that took me away from it a little bit with the music. And
well, like, you have an example?
I think when she's watching them play basketball, I remember thinking that during that scene, and I don't remember what song was playing.
Was it Jumping Jack Flash?
Probably. Or Give Me Shelter. So many songs.
I just want to say Kael agrees with me, although like I don't agree with her other thoughts about this. But I had that thought first, and then I read Kael's review, and I was like, okay, yeah, I got somebody to back me up here. She said, the music isn't used for a strong beat or for excitement. It's more like a deliberate distraction, as if Ashby wanted to hear what was going on in the next room.
I mean, there's a part where
he's such a dick.
I mean, she certainly was. She was an avowed dick. There's a part in this movie where they're playing Sympathy for the Devil, and then Robert Carradine starts playing a blues song over top of it, like a different song.
Yeah.
So there's literally songs on top of other songs. There's a lot of music packed in. And again, to me, it's sort of the Ashby thing, I think, in general, that you could talk about is he was a guy who was clearly very into music, and Harold and Maude is intimately tied with the music of Cat Stevens, which I think is one aspect that I think could be criticized with that movie. But you do get the sense a little bit sometimes, or like with Shampoo, there's the party scene where they're just playing Sgt. Pepper's and Mr. Soul by Neil Young. He's got great taste in early Neil Young music. Expecting to Fly is beautifully used in Coming Home. But you get the sense of like a guy who just has really good taste in music, who's like always having the idea of like, oh, I could do this. I could put this song that I love in it. One wonders if he would have worked with somebody like a T-Bone Burnett or somebody who had maybe some more obscure tastes or could pick the less on the nose, ultra famous Beatles or Stones song, if that would have been an interesting choice. I feel like you see Hal Ashby's personality through the music, but the personality is person who likes popular music at the time, kind of.
But you could also argue that it's because it was the popular music of the time, what people would have been listening to.
Yes.
Right. Verisimilitude, sort of like Spielberg's use of brands and stuff like that, right? Like that this is putting you really in the world. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's awesome.
No, I like it. Again, like that party scene in Shampoo, it just makes me so unhappy that I don't get to go to parties where they play Mr. Soul and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, while people are skinny dipping in the lake or whatever. It's definitely a bit of wish fulfillment that I witness, but that's just, maybe if he would have made a Grateful Dead movie, that would have just sent me over the top, and I would never be able to watch anything else ever as long as I live.
Scorsese has had that in development. So.
Hey, I know. Don't get me started on that. He would be the ultimate person to make the Grateful Dead movie. The Scorsese comparison, I think, is pretty apt, right? They're the two creators of the needle drop, really. Not the creators, but popularizers, certainly.
Yeah, but Scorsese does. I'm not a big Scorsese fan. Obviously, I think he made great movies, but like they don't resonate with me emotionally. But I think he does the needle drop better than Ashby.
Well, he goes back to the old standards every once in a while. He doesn't need to always be a different song that you haven't seen him use before.
Okay, another criticism Kael had about it was the way it dealt with the Vietnam War, because she felt like the politics of the film were very naive. Because Coming Home doesn't oppose the Vietnam War on political grounds. Like it more opposes it just from a pacifist perspective, the way you could criticize any war. But I think she felt like it should have been criticized even more given the specifics of the politics surrounding the Vietnam War.
But isn't pacifism a political stance?
Yeah, I think I'm not saying I agree with her about this. I think she wanted it to be more specific beyond just let's not do harm. But
I mean, I see that. That's an interesting point. I think that's an incredibly nitpicky point for like the first major Hollywood movie about the Vietnam War to like say like, oh, it didn't talk about every aspect of it, you know.
And it kind of wasn't the point. For me, it was devastating enough to show a VA hospital, and that's all the criticism that you needed about the American government. I guess you could have done more, but maybe it just needs to be there needs to be the Vietnam movie that takes place entirely in the VA hospital where they sort out all their problems.
Yeah, well, they wanted it to. They didn't want to depict the war, right? Like that was one of the early choices. The Deer Hunter famously goes the other way, you could say, and has received much criticism for this. But yeah, they wanted it to be about the home front, that you come home to. But that early conversation with the vets at the beginning, that one guy, he gives voice to this misbegotten idea of like, I believe in this political idea. And all of the other vets are like, what are you talking about? That's so crazy. Like, how could you possibly believe that? And that's as close as you get to a sort of socio-political analysis of it.
And it's also Bruce Stern in the end. I mean, it's a political statement to say like, this is what I built my entire life around. This is my identity. And it just came crashing down. I have nothing left, so I'm going to die now. I mean, that was a lot of people, not necessarily the suicide thing, although that happened, but that people, men in particular, will wrap themselves up and their identity in a job. And if they don't get to do that, that's the end.
And then, just the speech that Luke makes to the high school students, like, where the fact that it comes right after a recruiter is trying to talk to them about joining. And that speech was so good. I forget if we mentioned that he improvised it. They didn't know how that scene was going to go in the end. And so, there was a lot of question of like, how's it going to turn out? But it turned out great. I think Voight did an amazing job.
Beautiful.
Amazing job. He's crying. He's summing up the Vietnam War, and it works.
Yeah.
But the irony that underlies that whole entire thing is that there was a draft.
Right.
So it actually didn't even matter what he was saying in terms of saying anything.
Mm.
That's the tragedy of it.
I didn't even think about that.
Any more coming home thoughts?
Sally took it way too lightly that apparently we used to call her bent her over. She was just like, oh, ha, ha, sexual harassment, ha, ha.
It was the 60s, come on.
But I really, really loved Coming Home. And I'm excited for the future when I rewatch it, because I know that I'm going to. I think like the most romantic scene for me was like when she tells Luke that her husband's back, and like it's at the basketball game, and he just like turns away from the gate, and you just like feel that like crushingness. So anyways, I'm gonna rewatch it and like wait for that scene,
It's beautiful.
So I loved it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful experience. Now on to another series of scenes in which actors were made to improvise, and maybe this time it doesn't go so well. So just to kind of bring us up to the Ashby in the late 80s point, I know Coming Home and Bound for Glory got Best Picture nominations. Did Being There too?
No, but
that year is so stacked. Like,
did you guys watch Being There yet?
Yeah.
That is one of the best performances ever committed to. And you heard the thing about what the Oscars?
No.
No.
That Peter Sellers swore to the end that the reason he lost it, and this is probably true, was because of the blooper reel over the end credits. That's what keeps it from being perfect. I mean, it's hilarious. It's awesome. I love that moment, but he would have had a perfect thing if he had just left it alone.
It's pretty interesting.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So that's the is that Kramer versus Kramer? That's Dustin Hoffman winning.
Yeah.
beating him. That's such a crazy year, 79. We should do a thing on the 79 Oscars. That's like all that jazz. Apocalypse Now is not there yet, right? That's the next one.
No, that was
that is, it's Apocalypse Now too. And Justice for All, right? Another Jewison. So yeah, crazy stacked year. But anyways, so then that's kind of the end of Ashby pitching his perfect game. But he's got all this power, right? By the way, after Harold and Maude, he already created one production company that was called Dumbfuck Films.
Really?
Apparently. Yeah. And so after being there, or perhaps maybe after coming home, he started a new production company under the auspices of Lorimar. But what was the name of the production company? North Star. So yeah, North Star under the auspices of Lorimar. And basically he immediately starts having a run of bad luck of these productions that kind of don't come together or they take too long. There's also another argument that maybe he was getting a little too deep into drug use and maybe was letting these things get away from him. And we will talk about the ultimate sliding doors moment in his career. But basically, so he put together these movies, Secondhand Hearts and Looking to Get Out, which Looking to Get Out was a Las Vegas movie that was another Voight collaboration. And this movie is kind of, it just like was a problem from the start. It took 6 months to edit this one sequence set to the Police's Message in a Bottle, but they couldn't use it because of Lorimar's agreement with the American Federation of Musicians. So basically, just like he spent 6 months on this thing, the studio took it away from him and recut it. His movie Secondhand Hearts, which was Barbara Harris and Robert Blake movie that hasn't been seen like since that. They took it out of circulation for like 30 years and stuff. It was so bad. And he wanted and was tapped by Dustin Hoffman to make Tootsie. And Lorimar would not let him out of his contract because the production of it was going to overlap with some of the already taking way too long post-production on Looking to Get Out. So that's something we could talk about is what if Hal Ashby had fucking directed Tootsie? What a world would we be living in today? Who would be president?
It would be brilliant. It goes back to the whole thing about making the hits at the end of the decade. There's probably still would have been, he was on coke and a lot of it. So
this is disputed.
Is it?
Yeah, some people say that was a rumor started by Lorimar. That he was only doing mushrooms and weed. But look, we don't know, but
I think I clearly enjoyed
some people said that
drugs.
he did coke more in the early 70s, but had kicked it by the end. This is an alternative thing that I heard, but I'm also very willing to believe that Hal Ashby was doing a lot of coke at the end of the 70s too. So
I as tragic and as unfair as what the system did to him, what he did to himself was, to my mind, worse. He could have directed Tootsie and it probably would have been brilliant, and it would have, he could have gone out like that.
Yeah.
And having just 2 flops in a row, it's fine.
Or not gone out. I mean, that could have like launched him into a next phase of a new career. I mean, what would be different? You obviously wouldn't get Pollock in the movie as the agent, which or maybe you would have. Maybe they still would have gotten Sidney Pollock to play the agent.
Apparently Dustin Hoffman loved him and helped him out with the medical bills at the end of his life, along with Warren Beatty.
Yeah.
But I wonder what that collaboration would have been like, because I've heard, there are legendary stories of Dustin Hoffman being the most difficult human being to be in the same room with. So to have a free flowing kind of guy with this intense method actor, I don't know.
Yeah. But weirdly, like no actor has ever said a bad thing about working with him. And isn't Peter Sellers? I don't actually know that much about Peter Sellers, but he's known for being a difficult actor, and yet he apparently was
he had a wonderful time. He only had that one gripe about the end credits.
Yeah.
Who's the most hardcore methody actor that Ashby worked with otherwise? Not a lot. He didn't do a lot of the. I mean, Fonda. I mean, McQueen studied Meisner technique, but I don't know if he's John Voight
wouldn't get out of his wheelchair during coming home, and people carrying him upstairs. So that could have been seen as difficult.
But Hoffman is one of the ultimate to me, being a method actor means being a jerk to strangers. I mean, like Dustin Hoffman, any story that you hear about him method acting in the famous things, Midnight Cowboy, he's like, I went to restaurants and ruined people's evenings. Basically, like that was what he did. And I'm a fan of De Hoffman. I think he's a wonderful actor. Tootsie, of course, I guess, he's playing a difficult actor. And so one wonders how much he would have needed to strain himself to get into that.
Well, that's why Sidney Pollack actually appears in the movie, because the other actor that they had originally cast couldn't stand up to him.
Yeah,
and it was like, yeah, no, you're the only guy I know that wouldn't take my crap.
Yeah, we're not going to be having Hal Ashby in the agent role because Dustin Hoffman wants to be intimidated by him. I guess the things that would be different with Tootsie... so Tootsie is famously, that's a very much a screenplay first movie. Yeah. Right? Like, that's one of the all-time great screenplays. You could point to that as being the ultimate screenplay where every single line relates to its theme perfectly. I guess we would have some better needle drops in there. Memory serves, Tootsie's got some pretty lame music in it, right?
And it's like a regular score that's kind of very 80s.
Yeah, it doesn't have amazing. But yeah, I mean, I doubt Ashby would have fucked it up or anything. I think
it would have been a different movie. But the sexual politics would have come out more. And it would have, Dustin Hoffman's whole thing about being sad because he wasn't a good looking woman, I think Ashby would have interrogated that. But yeah, no, it's just really sad that it could have happened and he could have been okay for at least a little while.
Yes, we're living in the world where instead of that, he made a couple of movies that are largely forgotten. He did a Rolling Stones documentary. He did a Rolling Stones concert film. He did a Neil Young concert film, which is actually kind of cool, and a couple of other forgotten things. But then we get to
His last film. 8 Million Ways to Die,
in which perfectly normal, nice guy Oliver Stone comes along and says, I have a script.
Apparently, Oliver Stone wanted to direct it.
He would have been a better fit.
Much better fit.
So, what'd you think of 8 Million Ways to Die?
You've seen this movie.
I like it.
Oh.
I think it's an oddity. It has nothing to do with the rest of his career. You really would. I loved the alcoholic stuff. I think that's where the heart of the movie really is. And you can see Ashby coming to life sort of every few minutes when that comes around. I don't think he gives a single fuck about the cop story. The pubic hairline really made me go, I was like, oh, God, what are we doing here, dude?
I wrote that down. It's under my memorable quotes list that I have for my notes for this episode.
Yep.
It's so funny.
Yeah, this is the guy who made Harold and Maude, and that's where he's, okay, what we're doing.
Well, so Jeff Bridges stars in this film. Ashby bookended his career by working with both Bridges. His first directorial effort starred Bo, and his last starred Jeff. And Jeff said to him, I don't really understand. This is so interesting choice for you. Like, this does not seem like a Hal Ashby movie to me. And Ashby said, that's why I want to do it, because I want to see why I want to do it. And I don't know if that, I've been a person who's I'm an actor, and I've been in situations where directors say things like that to me about a project. It's never really a great sign, I have to say. If somebody's interested in trying to figure out the obscure reason that they have for wanting to do the thing.
Yeah, I wish he had just committed to the whole Alcoholics Anonymous rehab addiction thing, because that's the most powerful thing in the whole movie and would have been saying something.
Apparently he did. He shot quite a lot of stuff where they were exploring that. Well, I don't know if I could say it shot a lot of stuff, but Jeff Bridges said that when he was working on this film, he really was working to explore the spirituality of being an alcoholic, and he got really into AA. And apparently Alcoholics Anonymous was so impressed by the way they were handling it in the script that it was the first time that AA allowed their name to be used in a film. I actually don't remember the name being used in the film, so I don't know if they ended up using it, but they were clearly so impressed by the initial script that they liked that. And so I think Ashby if he had edited it himself, we would have gotten way more of that. Which I guess we should say to the listeners, because I don't know if we've said this yet, that very shortly after filming this movie, Ashby was fired and was not, well, he wouldn't have edited himself anyways, but he would have like overseen the editing. So he was not even allowed to participate at all and give feedback on the editing, which is crazy because he is such an amazing editor. So the movie that we got in the end, he doesn't even consider his movie anymore. And we have no way of knowing what the movie would have looked like if he had been able to see the project all the way through.
But in the interest of full disclosure, and I'm not on the side of the system, if you disappear for 2 weeks and people think you're on coke, they have a right to get upset about their product not being what it ought to be. Maybe.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. This is the big question, is this is right. We're talking about the tragedy of Hal Ashby and how marginalized he was by the studios. But yeah, like, I don't know if I want to go all the way and say that I don't blame him for a lot of things that don't work about this movie, including, I think it's difficult for me to see much value in the AA stuff in this movie because it does feel so tacked on. Like, I like the idea of that. And like, I want that to be, and you know, in the end, Jeff Bridges has this whole summing up thing where he says, he's giving his last commitment speech to the group. And he says, I live in a world that I didn't make. I need to understand this. So what does that have to do with the movie? Like, he was not somebody who seemed like he was trying to control everything. Like he seemed like he was just sort of bouncing around and letting things happen to him most. I mean, I guess in the beginning, like when he shoots the guy, that's like him thinking that he understands the situation and taking control too much. Like, I don't see how that relates to anything that goes on in this very convoluted plot.
Yeah. And I that line that you just said, I think that's Ashby's statement. I mean, that may be his like ultimate artistic statement, but it just wasn't developed in a way that it's anything other than this, like, okay, why did you just say that?
It's an AA thing. Come on, you know, you get it.
I think there are some parts about the movie that would have been a lot better if Ashby had been able to follow through. Like, for example, the snow cone scene and the warehouse scene. I think there was a lot of improv there that Ashby would not have kept in all of that improv. But also, I do think there were also problems with the plot just like on its own. Like, apparently the script, so Oliver Stone wrote it to be set in in New York, but then they switched for budgetary reasons for it to be set in LA, so then they weren't going to use the Oliver Stone script and they rewrote it, and Robert Towne helped a little bit, uncredited, but couldn't finish. And so then it was Bridges and Rosanna Arquette and Hal Ashby locked themselves in a room working on it together, improvising and writing the script. And there's some
pretty famous writers.
There's some vague speculation about like what they were actually doing in that room, apparently. Although Jeff Bridges, he's quoted as saying, it's not like we were in there doing coke or anything. This was the cleanest, hardest working set I've ever been on. I have to say that sounds a little too defensive.
I mean, I believe Jeff Bridges has never done coke. There's no way that man has ever done coke.
Yeah.
Way too laid back. And I don't want to hammer it breaks my heart that that's what he gave into.
But it's also just like, just to sort of put it back on the studios is right. Like the ending of Coming Home. I assume that there's a lot of Jon Voight's speech that was left on the cutting room floor for good reason, because it was rambling and over the top and saying the same point over and over again. Like the snow cone scene, that's got to be the most embarrassing scene of two major actors improving. Like, I mean, it is all of the hallmarks of people who are not trained improvisers. Like, it's like, what did you do to Sonny? Oh, what, you think I did something to Sonny? Yeah, I think you did something to Sonny. Oh, what, you think you look at a guy like me and you think you know about me? It's like, yeah, I've looked at guys like you all my life, buddy. Let me tell you right now, I know about you. And it's like, oh, you know. Oh, this guy, you're being rude right now. You think I'm being rude? I'm being rude? You think I'm being rude to you? It's like, yeah, you're being rude for 13 minutes of this. And then they have snow cones, and that adds a little bit to it, I guess. But.
Yeah, you're like, why do they have snow cones?
Yeah.
But it's like, it would have been good prop work. Like they could have, but it's like, why does he have this? And then he explains, oh, I want to have a snow cone franchise, which is like, they solved the whole scene with that one line.
Yes. And then they just have like this monologue about Gaudi added to the movie that's got nothing to do with anything. Like, I guess they had a set that looked like Gaudi, so.
I want to push back a little bit. Rosanna Arquette received a lot of criticism for being bad in this movie. And
she's not bad.
No, she's not bad.
She's fine.
I didn't think she was that bad.
She's not the problem at all.
Honestly, I'm going to just say this. Andy Garcia is running circles around everybody in this movie.
Wait,
so
you
good.
think he's good?
He's so good.
I love Andy Garcia.
He's given crap to do, but
God.
he makes such a meal out of that and takes it so seriously. Oh, I think he's terrific.
I thought it was very charismatic.
I do not agree. Yeah, I like that we have these. So it's like, because like I found this movie basically like turgid and terrible from the beginning. You said you thought 3/4 of the way it was kind of good, and then it lost the plot.
I thought it was good in the sense of like a fun, campy 80s movie until the snow cone scene, and then I think it just all goes downhill. Like the warehouse scene's terrible. The tram shootout scene in the end was just like so unexciting. But
and you kind of like it, and you kind of think it's interesting, and it's an interesting curiosity.
Yeah, like for example, that last half hour where the movie just stops being edited.
Yes.
And it's these shots that go on for minutes on end, and you're like, why are we cutting to anything? Like, it's just this weird, like, Godardian exercise in tedium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
And I know it's not on purpose, and I know I'm being very cheeky right now, but it's so weird that, and it's like the whole thing where they're on either side of that really long warehouse screaming at each other.
Yes, more improv. Yeah.
And setting Coke on fire, and then Andy Garcia's having a meltdown. I mean, it's just so crazy that I was like, yeah, all right. This is not what this is supposed to be. You can totally tell that it's not. But it's weird because you would have thought that they would have tried to cut it down and to make it more commercial and try to make it make
exactly
sense.
Yeah.
But it actually ends up being more of like a weird, like Hal Ashby type of like nonsense movie.
Yeah, no, right. Like that's the weird thing is like this movie was taken away from him, and they clearly chose all of the wrong takes and didn't cut them down at all. Like you could have cut those scenes. There's no way that you can tell me we need to have 15 versions of them saying, cut her loose, man, cut her loose, and then I'll give you the Coke. No, you give me the Coke, and then I'll cut her loose. I mean, like, they do that. I'm sorry, guys, I just have to say, like, I thought Andy Garcia was terrible in this. I'm not, like, I love him, but he is so uncharismatic and so unimpactful.
He has charisma coming out of his eyeballs.
I don't know how I was so blind to it, but yeah, I was like, wow, this feels like like it's like Paul Dano in There Will Be Blood. It's like somebody I know you do. It's like somebody stepping into this role at the last minute and like trying to do it. I don't know. I thought Andy Garcia was the weakest aspect of it for me.
No, and I would. So this movie's like 86.
Yeah, is that right?
So like this and Untouchables.
Yeah, right. No, he's right in that.
But I swear to you, I think Coppola was looking at this performance when he was thinking about Godfather 3.
Okay, I want to defend a little bit the quality of the movie in the end. Both Jeff Bridges and Rosanna Arquette felt pretty betrayed by the fact that Ashby wasn't allowed to oversee it at the end, because something Arquette said is that when you work with Ashby, you feel so much more free to do stupid takes.
Clearly.
And to like just go over the top. And she said like part of the process is like you do the first take totally outrageously and then you do the next take more normal. Like the outrageous one gets you going. And she said they shouldn't have been using all those stupid takes, you know? And one example she said is when she says prick. Okay, so like Scudder, Jeff Bridges' character, drags her into the trolley in a really annoyingly aggressive way. And she says prick, and he says fucking cunt, and she says fuck you. And that's the only exchange. And she's like, there's no way Hal would have used that exchange in the movie if he had done it himself. So she was like so upset about the way it depicted her acting because those weren't the takes that were supposed to be used. So yeah, just to defend it.
No, I mean, it is true that it can't possibly be the case that like they would have just done a cut down version of the snow cone scene. There has to be a completely alternate version of that scene. There's no way that you can tell me there's a great 5 minutes in that scene. Like that
I think there's a whole other movie where
Yeah.
Hal Ashby wanted to make a movie about a guy who wants to open up a snow cone shop.
No, that's the movie. Just look at the snow cone. That's the fucking movie right there.
What's crazy is what the executive producer of the studio PSO, Mark Damon, said afterwards. He said that in his opinion, he didn't think there were many interpretations of the film. Ashby edits in camera and doesn't shoot a lot of footage, so other editors working on it couldn't have gotten very far from his intentions. And he said, I think the picture we eventually put into the marketplace was a picture that all parties can be proud of. In the end, I was satisfied with the product.
This man is a liar from start to finish.
Hollywood has a gift for fiction.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in that rings true.
It's so funny. It's just such a shame.
The movie does not.
No, it's beyond the shame. I consider this like full blown tragic. That Hal Ashby did this to himself. He is culpable in this, but that the system was set up in such a way that he started to fail and couldn't get out of it. They took a guy who was one of the great visionaries of the 20th century as far as movies are concerned, turned him into nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me so sad. And it makes me afraid to want to do anything because I'm always afraid, well, I don't think I'm strong enough. I think the system is going to swallow me up. I'm not a cokehead, so I got that right.
This reminds me of like Stephen Sondheim, right? Who is a person who, had his period where he made amazing works, but he started off and he was just happened to be a part of West Side Story and Gypsy, which were two big popular hits. He wasn't the main guy, but he did it. And then he starts making weird experimental works that don't work for a while until they start hitting. And, he's like, I think that it's just the fact that I was lucky enough to have early success, was so important for my ability to not be destroyed by taking an artistic chance that didn't work. If 8 Million Ways to Die had been Ashby's first movie, there's no way that, we could have. I mean, I guess there's plenty of directors who make terrible first movies and then go on, like Kubrick is an example. Plenty of people who go on to level up seriously. But Ashby, he was very lucky in that he got his start on such a level where it's the time period, it's his relationships with other people, but he was afforded the ability to experiment and fail until the money people kind of came in and took everything over and made everything about, it's the 80s, baby, and it's all going to be slick and commercial. And
it's a question that I ask myself because it's all part of the ethos is like, how do we create a system in which, if they want to make Transformers, go do that by all means. That's what makes people money. But why there isn't like the other side of the fence where people like a Hal Ashby can flourish?
Well, there's the tragic thing now where you have these people who make their small, personal, indie-ish movie, and then they immediately get sucked into the Marvel thing, and they get sort of, stuck. And I mean, this is where all of our major auteurs, they have to go through. Gerwig, you could say, is a successful version of somebody who has made hits, but, is using recognizable IP and is trying to work within the big budget system. But I mean, there's no, the death of the mid-budget movie, the death of the movie star. There's all of these forces that are preventing weird voices from developing on any kind of scale.
Yeah, and I can get to my very angry point.
Give it, let it out.
This is where I kind of end. Really, what has been breaking my heart. I've been in Hollywood for 13 years now, but what's been breaking my heart since 9/11 is that when you had those 70s filmmakers, they were responding to the Vietnam War, they were responding to racism, they were responding to all this other sociopolitical stuff, and they were making all this great art out of it. Since 2001, 22 years, and the biggest thing that we can say for the movie industry is Marvel. And yes, There Will Be Blood gets through every once in a while, or a Pan's Labyrinth or something like that, or Black Klansman even. But the fact that there is not a generation of people that are using cameras to rage against the fact that we were attacked. We've been through 2 wars. One is the longest we've ever been in. We had a financial meltdown. We had all this racist garbage popping up. And the 70s should have been happening all over again. It's really, really upsetting to me because it's like, I don't know. I can't do it myself. And I'm worried that I'm too weird for most people in terms of the movies and the stories that I want to tell. But I don't want to give up hope either. I don't want to be nostalgic that we have to live for right now. But it's like, God, why won't things collapse? When's Hello Dolly coming out again to make the whole thing fall apart such that the little guys can get through the gate again? It's so depressing to me and it's so upsetting. But I'm grateful that I get Hal Ashby's movies that I can go back to. And I was like, well, there's still reason to keep thinking about this stuff and dreaming about it, because if he did it, someone else can do it. But also I'm glad that I got to come here and do this and vent and talk about this. That's the thing I love. So
yeah, we really appreciate your time for coming and talking to us today on this episode.
Any more Ashby thoughts? Do we have any more things you want to say?
I love them. And I'm glad that people like Alexander Payne and Wes Anderson are carrying that spirit on as best they can. Foster talent. Don't blot it out. Look after the Hal Ashbys of the world.
Yeah. Well said.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope I get to come on again. I have a few other desires.
Yeah.
If you'll have me, but we'll see. Maybe you are already done the episodes. I don't know, but we'll see. But
no, we would love to have you on.
Absolutely.
Again.
All right, that's our show. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Check us out on social media. Thank you to the Illuminator for our artwork. And remember, guys, we're a new podcast, so if you could leave a comment or just a like, that would really help us out. Thank you. We love you. Bye. Marlon Brando, Ellen Burstyn, Robert Evans, and Shelley Duvall. Sad endings 'cause of Watergate and Vietnam.